People are drawn to rural Georgia for its peace and quiet beauty. What follows is a story about a group of people who came to do our own thing, as one man put it. What their thing is a little complicated and more than a little unnerving to some of their neighbors in Putnam County, which is about 70 miles southwest of Atlanta. Fox 5's Doug Richards joins us now with more on who they are and the biggest questions surrounding these folks. Doug?
Amanda, this group is probably located about 50 miles south of Athens. It's a group that has published piles of newsletters and writes favorably about bits and pieces of all the world's major religions. Yet its members say they are non-religious, a fraternal order, like the Shriners. The group's leader is described as more than a teacher. He is the supreme grand master and happens to be from another planet. The Eatonton-based group has several names: the Nation of Nawabian Moors, the Ancient Mystic Order of Melchizedek. It all fits enough of a pattern that it has some Putnam Countyans nervously asking, is this group a cult? 70 miles southeast of Atlanta, Eatonton is the seat of Putnam County, best known as the dairy capital of Georgia.
Oh, they got 400 and something acres. Goes up to that corner, young.
William Larman is a dairyman, and he's talking about his new neighbors.
Oh, yeah, I'm happy for them.
But they are not dairymen.
Because they said they come from what? Ritz. Planet Ritz, I think.
It is not a joke to the people who've built these two large pyramids and elaborate Egyptian-style ornamentation and put up rows of double-wide homes on some 400 acres of rural Putnam County farmland and woodland. How many people live here?
Got different families.
It's a place that granted our request for a visit inside the secured gate, allowed us to watch the workers build new ceremonial structures, allowed us to listen close up to the continuous chant broadcast from a speaker bank at the top of one of the pyramids.
For people that want to get spiritually in tune with the understand.
But for the most part, sidestepped our requests for answers. What about the guy from another planet?
We'll make sure you get all of them.
Are they a cult?
Depends on definition of a cult. Certainly there are many characteristics similar with other entities that are defined as cults.
How long you lived here?
About 6-7 months.
Jerry, our tour guide, says he came here from Alabama. The sheriff says most of the other residents come from the Northeast, New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore. How many, including how many children, is unclear. He's Yanun?
He's known by many names.
The group's leader is identified in literature as Malachi Zodok York, the Supreme Grand Master. He is described as a charismatic speaker and apparently a prolific writer, producing monthly newsletters and dozens of books. He says that he is from the 8th planet in the 19th galaxy of Eliwan, a universe far outside of this one. Does it make sense to you?
That's in the book. If he wrote it, then yeah. We're from Orion. Dr. York is from Risk. He's from Orion. What's the deal? It's nothing strange. It's just new to the public.
The vast majority of cults are started by an individual who's extremely charismatic, who's very confident, very commanding, in some cases very demanding, expects an awful lot of the followers.
So this is the Compound nightclub?
It's not a compound.
Oh, it's not a compound? I'm sorry.
Not at all.
The centerpiece of the Putnam County property is a nightclub the group opened in October. At midday, it was in high decibel preparation for an upcoming party. Outside, there were parked 3 stretch limousines.
It's an Egyptian theme park.
This is a theme park?
An Egyptian theme park.
Now, there's some people that think this is a cult.
Well, there's 2 ways to look at it. We don't happen to have a religious belief. You know what I'm saying? Now, on the other hand, culture, there's a connection there. So if you say we're a cult in the sense of we found a culture that works for us, yeah.
Are they dangerous?
I have no information to indicate that they are dangerous.
What they are is a roadside curiosity to native Putnam Countyans, and to the folks inside the gate, a community with children and entertainment, and an Egyptian theme, and a leader they call Grandmaster, who writes that he's from another planet.
Maybe the spaceship come in here and I could get away with him.
You see all that we're building out there?
Yeah.
Does it look like we're going anywhere soon to you? we build it. It's so beautiful out there. It's a beautiful, peaceful environment where we invite any nationality, any race to come out and visit.
Though they declined my request for a formal interview, the Nuwaubian nation of Moors does have a curious history of openness. Each summer it has an open house. The sheriff says the open house draws thousands of people to the Putnam County property, clogging the roads, folks from all over the world coming to visit relatives and to hear from the Supreme Grand Master. Not surprisingly, the group also has a website, an ever-evolving website.
How large a following do they have? I mean, how many people are there at that compound?
Well, it's really hard to tell. The sheriff estimates it's more than 100, but he says that there are also lots of people that actually live in the community in Putnam County who don't actually live on the property, but go to the property regularly to hear the Supreme Grand Master and go to the nightclub, presumably, and whatever else.
The nightclub open to the public? Regular party atmosphere?
That's what they say, and they serve liquor, and they say no drugs are allowed.
Interesting. Putnam County. Thank you.
Thanks.
Welcome to Pocket Watching with JT. Real Accountant Reacts. Jason Thornton is a financial advisor licensed in both tax and financial planning. This video is not financial advice. This is JT's real reaction to finance and business related issues to help you think like an accountant. Want more? Go to PocketWatcher.net to book a consultation, check out our gear, or enroll in Pocket Watcher Academy. Now, let's go pocket watching.
Hey, Pocket Watchers. Welcome to Real Accountant Reacts Live. Tonight we are going to go into the shocking truth about the money that builds up these different cults. Now, the video that you just saw, before the intro video, obviously, the video that you just saw is about the Nuwaubians. If you have never heard of the Nuwaubians, don't feel bad. There's a lot of people who've never heard of them, but you will be shockingly surprised about the story of this particular organization. Now, I wanted to do this video last week. There was some scheduling conflict, so I am super excited to be able to bring you guys this story. Now, tonight, I have with me a brother who, in my opinion, is the leading authority on the Nuwaubians. I could try to give this brother's bio to you, but I would only butcher it. I would do a horrible job. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to have the pleasure to introduce to you Mr. Chuck Morgan. Chuck Morgan, what is going on, my brother?
How are you, my friend?
Man, I'm doing good. Just real quick disclosure to the Pocket Watchers out there. I gotta let you know, I've been listening to this brother online for hours and hours and hours of his content. So if you see me fan out a little bit, hey, just it is what it is, because I love the way this brother is able to tell the story of this extremely complex organization that has been a part of the Black community all the way dating back to what I believe the early 60s. Is that correct?
Actually, it goes back to the latter part of the 1960s.
Man, so please, before we even get into the story of the Nuwaubians and the money that backed up this organization, could you please help my followers, who I lovingly refer to as Pocket Watchers, could you give them a short bio of who you are? Okay.
Chuck Morgan. I have a website, nuwaubianism.com, and my origins within the organization comes around 1989, and I got involved with the organization in Washington, D.C., which is where I'm from. Upon coming in contact with them, I worked at the Pyramid Bookstore, it was then known as the House of Knowledge, just right up the street from Howard University, and Islamic Visions Video. And I had little interactions with them, and my initial introduction into them was one night in Georgetown, where I had, because when I worked at the Pyramid or the House of Knowledge store, I did some type of handcrafts and things like that. And so I used to knit and make these little kufis, little head thing with the tassels, And I was wearing it one evening in Georgetown, and then a young fellow from the 5% Nation came up to me and confronted me on what I was wearing. And because I didn't know anything about it at the time, I just liked it because I saw Rakim in the music video. And so I took it upon myself to wear it. And that confrontation left me kind of shocked and shook. So I needed to get some information on who this person was and what they represented. And so one day I was on Georgia Avenue in Washington, and I saw guys dressed in white outside of a then People's Drugstore, now CVS. And he gave me a couple of books. We talked, tried to give him this audio. When I saw a picture of the leader, I kind of was turned off because he had that kind of cult look, the holding the staff, looking away from the camera, wearing white, Right. So I was kind of turned off by that, but I did listen to it. And the way that he had this kind of charisma, it didn't fit the image. Okay. And in addition to that, it cleared up or it answered or addressed what I was looking for. And so that led me to go on and on to learn more, get more. And then eventually I started hanging around brothers in debate, or the house where they were located in Washington on Rhode Island Avenue. So being involved with the organization at that point, I started doing a lot of studying, and being within that organization and you really apply yourself, you kind of move up in a sense, because they look at you as not just some spaced out brother that's there to, do all the spiritual things, because you have one group of people who were the spiritual people, and then you have people who were soldiers, I guess, and then there are people who were teachers. And over time, my claim within the organization was that I studied a lot, and I was more studying the doctrine. And around about later in around 1990, that's when I first met Malachi York, then known as Imam Isa in upstate New York. And I came across him in Brooklyn, but to actually deal with him on a one-on-one was in upstate New York. So that really is my start within the organization. Nothing fancy, nothing big, just a grunt, if you will. Right. Just that I kind of took it really blossomed more around the mid 90s, because I started doing talk radio in Washington, D.C. Okay. And Joe Madison was my mentor at the then WOL station, one of the Captain User stations. And being able to be this avenue to take the doctrine or the teaching to a different location was something that he really appreciated, and that's when we really started to have a close, something of a close relationship, as far as being with the leader and having access to publications that hadn't come out yet, or proofreading the publication, or just getting mouth to ear information. So if I'm getting a debate or a discussion, I have more ammunition because it's coming directly from the man. Right. So, I mean, obviously, you're an insider. You are a member of the organization. You got introduced to it. Your ability to now start to broadcast the theology and propagate the message of the organizations over the airwaves. I mean, you brought it to a whole nother level that I'm assuming other followers / ministers, presenters of the organization, they really hadn't seen that type of work coming. That's what it seems like. You got recognition based off that. Yeah, and it did bring some levels of envy from other individuals, because when I had the radio show, it was 3 of us, because York wanted me to have 2 other persons, because in Georgia he had a group of teachers, 3, known as the Triad of Atum Ray. And they being focused in the South, he wanted to establish a triad of Atumre in the North. So it would be myself, Brother Jonathan, and another individual. And because one individual was a little more envious and didn't, because I have to do it this way, I have to pause because to bring some context. When you became a part of the organization, you had to fill out an application, you had to have a physical, and then you had to move within the walls of the organization, that particular location in the city that you're in. So this being Washington, D.C., eventually I did get a physical, but the person who was running it at the time, I guess they saw the sincerity, I don't know. But he allowed me to move in without having the actual physical at the time. So because that was the format, how things were operating, because York had me doing so many other projects, I didn't have to live in the community around 1996 and 7.
Okay.
And because of that, and the other individuals who were living in, one individual didn't like it, so he kind of sabotaged the radio show. So I had to inform York about it, and then that was what later he asked me to open up a bookstore, and then another community in the state in Baltimore.
Yeah. So I can see the envy already, because to them, and from my point of view, you were getting special treatments, right? You got some sort of preferential treatment because they're looking like, well, we had to do these 3 things. He didn't have to do that. So
and that was and that's interesting because doing what I was doing, how it was structured, since we're going to be dealing with the money situation, you had to go out every day, except maybe Sunday if you're going to be in class for whatever reason. But generally, the rule is that once you move in, you have to propagate. And that usually consists of you taking the literature of York and proselytizing individuals on the street. But what was more, the focus was really on making as much money for the organization as possible.
Right.
It is ideal for you to tabligh, which is to reach out or try to reach new souls, but you couldn't spend too much time building with individuals because you had to turn in a quota.
Right.
And so some individuals became more innovative on how they were going to generate those funds. Being in DC, you had a unique music genre, which was go-go.
Okay.
So you had one brother who was gifted at gab on the street. He had that whole street swing, swag, and lingo. So he would sell go-go tapes. Now he would generate up to, he usually would do about $800 to $1,000 a day.
A day?
A day.
And
what was no joke. He was the top man in the Washington, D.C. community.
And this was in the 90s?
This was in the 90s, yeah. Yeah.
Whoa.
Because remember, cassette tapes. Go-go cassette tapes was the number one thing going in Washington, D.C. at the time. So he was able to go out with his wife, with the guard, set up downtown on F Street, and have go-go tapes blasting, right? You had, back then it was called Up Against the Wall. You had all these stores. And on Saturdays, daily, the lunch crowd, it was all about money. Everybody was buying. And he usually catered to, of course, drug dealers. Because everybody, you had Alpo at the time. He had dominated the whole crime scene in based that part of DC. And the guys who had like Lexus and BMWs, Mercedes, when you're riding down the street, you got to have the go-go playing.
Okay.
And the systems that they had were outstanding. So when they played it, they had to have that sharp, crisp PA tape.
Okay.
And so Wadapa, he was the go-to man for that. And he got paid.
All right. So I don't want to dig too deep, because what I want you to do, because I'm telling you, 99.9% of my audience have never even heard of the New Wabians. So what I would love for you to do is to introduce to us who is Dwight York, or Dr. Malachi Z. York, and how was this organization started? And you can take us from that point all the way up into the modern day. And obviously, I'm going to have some questions, even though I feel like I have some level of understanding of this organization because I've been watching hours and hours of your content. I'm still going to have questions. So Pocket Watchers, you know I'm going to be interrupting at some point. But I'm going to do the best I can to sit back and just listen to this story. So please introduce us. Who is Dwight York, and what is the Nuwaubians?
All right. So before we even get to who the Nuwaubians were or are, you have to understand, and for the audience, you have to understand that the organization under Dwight Malachi York goes all the way back to the late 1960s. So, shortly after York had been released from prison, or after released from jail, he apparently came up with a gimmick, which was to use Islam as his means to generate revenue. And back then, based on his writings and what his words are in the book, The Ansar, Rebuttal to the Slander of the Ansar Cult in America, he established an organization called the Ansar Pure Sufi. So before there was a Nuwaubianism or Nuwaubian as a group, they were known as the Ansar Pure Sufi. And by 1970, it became officially the Nubian Islamic Hebrews Ansarullah community.
And this was originally... This was originally a purely, like, from an outside looking in, this was a African American Islamic organization. So during this time, I mean, obviously the popularity of the Nation of Islam, and so the concept of Muhammad Ali, Malcolm X, the whole concept of a African American Islamic movement isn't something that was just unknown or unheard of. It was something that was really in popular culture at the time.
Exactly.
Okay.
Only he took it in a different direction.
Gotcha.
And his thing was, or his gimmick was that his bloodline goes all the way back to the Prophet Muhammad of Arabia. Okay. So he later started to bait Nation of Islam followers as things started progressing around the late 80s.
Okay.
So initially in Coney Island, and then he eventually moved to Brooklyn, New York. On 717 Brooklyn, New York, that was the location of the Ansarullah community, the store, which is still there now. And his thing was writing books or addressing issues in book form that had not been necessarily addressed, or at least coming from a Black perspective. They began with little leaflets that he would write and pass out on trains, etc. And he would build a following, and his ability to talk, articulate his views, the way he talked, that he was able to develop a strong following, and he developed a number of loyal members who stood by him. And as they started to do certain things in terms of making money, the more money that became brought in, that helped the organization build and then expand and then buy up new property and buildings and stretch out into different cities. And then even overseas in the Caribbean, in London, various other places.
Right. So now, during this time, I would imagine, were there a lot of conflicts with the Nation of Islam? Because you would have the Nation of Islam, which is a more well-known group, and they have a very strong base in the on the East Coast. And obviously, I mean, if you just look at it, through my lens point, I'm always looking at it like a business. All right, where we have competition that's going after the same group of people, right? So you're in the same market, and you have competition. You got McDonald's and you got Burger King, and you're going after the same customers. Obviously, there has to be some sort of conflict or issues because there's only so many people who are trying to buy in to what you're selling. I would imagine there had to be some run-ins with the Nation of Islam.
Over time, there was, but York's thing was to stay within his own lane and then start charting new territories that hadn't been pursued before. Because by us at the time wearing white, you see, and having that appearance of those in Arabia, and then trying to follow it as closest to the Sunnah or the way that the Muslims in the Sudan presented themselves. That was his area. Now, over time, he did start to put out publications where he then began to challenge other doctrines, arguing with people, teaching this, well, they're good, but they're not right, and here's why. And that was designed to bring in or to bait other followers from the Moorish Science Temple followers, the 5%ers, of course, the Nation of Islam, the Hebrew Israelites, because the name Nubian Islamic Hebrew, the term Hebrew itself, that brought in a curiosity.
Gotcha.
And then people would come to the Hart Street, they would go to the classes that York would have. And these classes were live, and he would stand at a podium and he would answer questions. He would lecture or answer questions. And because he was using the Bible and the Quran as the teaching tool, the things that he was able to present to the audience by way of these scriptures put him into an area that hadn't really been pursued before by other leaders in terms of using those writings to say that you are living in this prophecy and here I am in this book. And that's where the whole thing with he being an incarnation of Melchizedek, using biblical quotes to speak of what is happening now and what is to happen in the future. So he has become not only the angel Michael, but also Melchizedek, and as time went on, he began to be everybody.
Everybody. All right, so here we go. This is me interjecting some pocket watching. Now, I know, and hopefully most people realize, in America, the bar that they set for being an official religion is extremely low. Anybody can trip and fall over the bar that the IRS sets to say, are you a legit religion or are you not? They're really not in the business of doing that. When you're an organization full of lawyers and accountants, they don't say if your religion is legit or not. All you have to do is basically say you're some sort of religious group, and you get that that status with the IRS. So you have this organization, a religious-based organization, and obviously all organizations require some sort of charity, be it tithing, 10% of your income or whatever. But obviously this man was able to build an empire, really, of, millions of dollars. And it's kind of hard to kind of figure out how was he able to do this on the backs of believers in a community that was mainly low income. Unless I'm missing something, there were some people who were in middle class from my research, but the vast majority of the members of this organization were low income. How were you able to secure the property, the different buildings and stuff like that off the backs of people who were mainly low income?
Well, in addition, over time, these men who were residing in the community, again, they had to go out and they had to bring home the money. Some would take, we used to call it the beggar's bowl, where you would go on the subway and you would literally beg people that we're trying to build a school for the children, the Ansar children, and your donation will be appreciated, etc. York also started to put himself into the music industry, and he became—
That's interesting.
Yeah, he became very, well, I wouldn't say very, but he did get something of a following. And because he aligned himself with very prominent individuals in the music industry, Kenny Gamble, Leon Huff, James Ingram was a staunch, powerful member within the Nuwaubians at the time. You see him in various photos where he's with Jackie Wilson's sister. You had, of course, as time progressed, the Nubian nation under York and the Ansars, when he had aligned himself with the Zulu nation. And he put out a few songs.
Himself?
Because he had a recording studio.
Okay.
It's called York Records.
Okay. All right. So obviously this wasn't an organization that saw, because a lot of cults take a look at popular culture and they rail against it. And they say, you don't need to listen to the modern music and whatnot. His spin on it was he's using popular culture as a tie-in to his organization.
On one hand, because that's where the inconsistency of it comes in. Because on one hand, he's writing books about music and the detrimental effects of it, yet he's using it. He speaks about earphones and the dangers of them, yet he's wearing them. And he's talking about various forms of music, yet he's doing it. Like using artificial music, what he would say, artificial instruments, synthesizers, keyboards, drum machines. Right. But his music is loaded with it. You see? So when he's speaking against something in the Imam Isa thing, he's actually doing that which he is writing against. And he was able to convince the followers that, well, Dr. York is not like Imam Isa, because Imam Isa is a religious figure. But Dr. York, he takes off the white, he takes off the garb and goes into the clubs. And then going into the club, he's able to reach people the same way Jesus, he didn't hang around just all the believers. He had to go in, you see. That was
that's how he was able to at least justify in the minds of the believers that he can have this dual personality where one, as Imam Isa, it's a holier than thou. He's the blueprint of what a perfect person should strive to be like. And then while he's York and York Studios, he's in the clubs, he's doing all the things in secular life that Imam Isa would frown upon. It's okay because he's using it as a fishing tool. He's using it to go after and get the people.
Exactly. And in addition to that, he released a series of booklets because he was not only as Dr. York, the singer, but he also was a part of a group called Passion. The music was centered around love ballads. He was a crooner, like the whole Marvin Gaye type thing.
Okay.
It's on me, you're not to blame, all these, and then he had some.
He went all in. He was all in on a music career, and it wasn't like a gospel singer would. He was all in pop culture music.
And he also produced gospel music. Because York Records, not only the York record, he do his own thing there, but he also produced other individuals. People would come in to record in the York studio in Hart Street in Brooklyn, New York. And in that notoriety, people like he did started doing music videos. And in one music video, you see members of the Delphonics there. There's a scene where York, because the song is "It's on Me," and York is crying. He's at the cemetery, and then he's consoled by members of the Delphonics as they, listen. He was able to use people to his advantage to give or leave the impression of his legitimacy. He even released a video documentary on himself being interviewed where he explains all of this stuff. Who is this Dr. York? Because what we had to do as Ansars, we would go out at night around 2 a.m. and we would take hundreds of posters. The Love Man, Dr. York, but he's not dressed as Iran. He's dressed as the singer, with his hair in the high top fade. Got his fly gear. Right. He's wearing that, and because he had artists who would draw his image, and they would draw the Dr. York image, but it was him because you see the three shuluks on his face, the Sudanese thing that he had put on his face, and that mystery was, who is Dr. York? Who is the Love Man? The Love Man is back, and what caused Muslims, because remember, he was a Muslim. At least he played that as the character.
Right, an Orthodox Muslim. Like he was presenting. He was presenting himself as an Orthodox Muslim,
teaching Islam in its pristine purity. Meaning he was going beyond what the Sunnis and the Shia and all these other people, because they're not following the Sunnah the way that it is mentioned in the Hadith or how it's confirmed in the Quran. So he would take it that far, and that was to make him the elite. And also because he is supposed to be from the bloodline of the Mahdi Muhammad Ahmed of 1845 in Sudan. And to be able to support that belief is he was able to, and because of his support for the Sudanese family in that region,
right?
The prime minister of Sudan, who wasn't the prime minister at the time, would come down and actually visit York in Brooklyn, New York.
All right. Now, when you say support, what type of support? I mean, obviously, because to me, when you say support, I hear dollar signs. How is he being even noticed by someone who was the former prime minister of a country?
Because he, in his publications, and they becoming distributed nationwide, word got out about a man in America who is saying that the Ansar, he is the leader of the Ansars in the West.
Okay.
And he's trying to build a bridge to the Ansars in the East.
Okay.
And that is what brought the connection about. And even put books out in the 70s documenting that. So the 3 times that he visited the York community, they took lots of photos. lots and lots of photos.
Right.
And to the point where Sayyid Sadiq actually invited York to come to the palace in Sudan.
Really?
Yes. This is documented.
Did he go?
Absolutely. And in doing so, he showed lots of pictures, and those pictures was to establish him as being, of the Mahdi family of Sudan. Therefore, it adds credence to his teachings that he is related to Muhammad by way of the Mahdi family. Even though Sayyid Sadiq never co-signed it, he never said that, and that was something that a writer, a Sunni Muslim, wrote a book called The Ansar Cult in America.
Right. Okay.
Which absolutely outraged York.
Okay.
And
so this is the event that kind of caused a shift, right? So now you have someone else in America who is claiming, who has a more orthodox look at Islam and has a following. And he basically, writes a book exposing what he believes is a deviation in the teachings of Islam that York is teaching. Do I got that correct? Okay.
Absolutely. As to who financed it, it's Saudi Arabian government, Wahhabi sect, whatever. The point was, once that book hit the streets, it absolutely caused a change within the organization. The person, Bilal Phillips, who wrote the book or was responsible for it, he pointed out some things that were absolutely true. And we as Ansars knew it was true, but York was denying it.
So
what he did
to break up.
Go ahead.
So obviously, Bilal Phillips wrote this book, and this book is exposing internal things that only the believers, the insiders, knew what was going on in the organization.
Yes, because part of the book is addressing religious ideologies, but then members who were ex-Ansars were giving Bilal Phillips information about their life in the community, and then things like, okay, we had this place called the Green Room, and you usually didn't get access to that, which was you having a place where you and your wife or mate or girlfriend are able to go one night and have whatever relations you want to have. But that is only done if you have turned in the most money.
All right. We gotta slow down. All right. So please explain to the pocket watchers, what was the living situation, right? So I want to join this organization, because obviously something has to be up if I'm only able to spend quality time with my wife, if I'm able to turn in the most amount of money for the day or the week or whatever. Clearly, the living situations is somewhat unique. Could you walk us through what it is if I'm a family, right? It's me, my wife, and one child. We hear the teachings of Dr. York. We accept the teachings of Dr. York. What are the steps from us just being visitors to actually becoming members? What does that look like? Or what did it look like?
It's very simple. I'll walk you through the scenarios, how it works. Okay, so here I and my girlfriend, not even a wife, girlfriend, and we come across some writings and some publications. We listen and we kind of like what we hear. Yeah, it sounds pretty good. And then, he's talking about the black thing. I'm kind of with that. I can vibe with that. And then I attend their lectures, and then I'm listening, and I'm like, wow, this is really, I'm hearing stuff I ain't never heard before. Right. And I may not agree with everything, but I kind of like support this guy. What do you think, baby? He said, yeah, it sounds pretty good. I think let's get more books. Then he starts to move it to where you come into classes and everything is good, but then there's another level, and the next level is that you don't want to get caught out here. You need to come into the tabernacle of the Most High.
Okay.
And the tabernacle of the Most High is where you would be protected in the event of a thermonuclear war.
Oh, okay. So now we've got, after you get a little interested, you start to show some more interest. Now there's an element, and trust me, I'm pocket watchers, I've gone down so many rabbit holes of YouTube for different cults. This would be the introduction of the end time section of the organization, where they're telling you that there's going to be an end time event, right? Where if you do not fully come into the organization, you may get caught out there with the non-believers. You need to come into the organization so that you can be protected from whatever end time event that's going to pop off. This is not unique to this organization. If you go down enough rabbit holes on YouTube, you'll see that every cult has some element of this end time. Exactly. So that would be the convincing theology that would get a person who may be kind of straddling the fence to come all the way in.
Yes.
Okay.
And so if we're listening to this, and while they're telling us these things, then we start to get this kind of uneasy feelings and wow, look at this, the climate of the world, there's a war going on, there's rumors of war, it's all in the book of Revelation. And then it comes out of her, my people, that you be not partakers of her delicacies. York is pushing this and saying that this is where you need to be, in the tabernacle of the Most High, because we are the people that the prophecy in the book of Revelation is saying that the 144,000 children of light are being raised. And it's they who will be the salvation to the world, the black world. And so you take it upon yourself, say, okay, we're going to do it. So you talk to the administration.
Right.
What do we have to do? how do we move in? Because I want to move in. I want to be a part of this thing.
Right.
And so they inform you that, okay, here's a physical, there's an application that you have to fill out. And the application is a list of a number of questions. And that goes from what diseases did you have? Have you ever had venereal diseases? What crimes were you ever convicted of? How much sex do you have a day or week or month? You know, really intimate details that they're asking you about. And then once you fill it out, you submit it. And it's supposed to go to get approval from the administration at that time in Brooklyn, and then eventually upstate, and then down in Georgia.
All right, real quick, couple questions now.
Mm-hmm.
Within the questionnaire that I would get, obviously you talked about the personal stuff,
mm-hmm.
and then there was the physical. Was there any questions about financial stuff? Did
Yes.
they have to give a financial disclosure? What assets did you own? What type of job
Yes.
did you have?
Absolutely.
How much money did you make? Okay.
Yes, that was also in the questionnaire. How much money you make a year? How much money you make a month? Are you willing to give that money over to the organization?
When you say give that money over, are you saying
you willing to give your earnings as a free will offering to the organization? Yes.
so? Not like in a traditional black church, you would say, you know, tithing 10%. So I would give 10%. No, you're saying turn over my full paycheck.
No, it's not saying. No, that was the thing. It wasn't saying this is what you should do or will do. It's asking, would you be willing to?
Are you willing to?
You have the decision. Would you do that?
But clearly, I'm at the very early stages of wanting to be a part of this community.
Mm-hmm.
I believe, because I've been taught that this is the end times, and if I don't get on the ark, I'm gonna be left out there in the wilderness and I'm gonna drown. You present me with a question, would I be willing to?
Yeah.
You're gonna say yes if you want to be a part of this organization. I can't foresee someone saying, no, I'm not gonna give my money, because they already have in their mind, they know this is not gonna go the way I want it to go if I say no.
Well, I didn't turn it. I didn't. I mean, I said, yeah, I'm willing to, but I didn't. You know,
right, because it was just a question.
It's up to you. But you being one who wants to support the organization, and by the time you get that, you've already been indoctrinated to believe it's about the mission.
Okay.
The mission, because the Nubian Islamic Hebrew mission is that we are preparing a place for you and your family by way of the children. Because it was all about the children initially.
All about the children.
Yeah. And they were to be these virgins, these special children had to be raised.
Mm-hmm.
And it could only be raised within the tabernacle of the Most High.
Now, what was the point of the physicals? I'm already kind of giving you my sexual history, my medical history, like within the questionnaire. Why do you think they had to literally go out and get a physical? Because a physical, in my experience, I played sports in high school and college. Physicals were just basically, you know, basic medical checkups to make sure that, you know, I had a good range of I mean, they weren't like really doing blood tests and stuff like that, were they?
Yeah, we had AIDS tests and all that stuff.
Oh, they went through the whole thing.
York's is what York had done was he explained it this way.
Okay.
If you're going to move into a place where you have a number of individuals, we want to make certain that you don't have communicable diseases. And so that was it's plausible.
Right.
And of course, if I'm living there, I want to make sure that someone's coming in, they don't have, you know. And so, I mean, I give him that.
Okay.
And so that was the criteria. Like I said, certain people, they came in not necessarily having it ever done.
Gotcha.
Because when I did move in, I still had to turn in my money.
Okay. All right. So bringing it back to the original spot. Now, me and my girlfriend, maybe a child, we hear the end times part. We come in, we fill out the questionnaire, extremely personal questionnaire that's going to give people who I do not know, but it's going to give them a lot of loaded information about personal things in my life. This kind of reminds me of a situation with the Church of Scientology, where you have members that come in, they do auditing, they, basically just disclose some of the most personal things about yourself. And sometimes those things are kind of held over the head of these members. When they try to leave, they're afraid that their deepest, darkest secrets will be exposed.
Let me pause there, because I think I want to go back and complete the question.
Right.
For that question.
What did it look like to come in?
You touched on something that's relative, because of the individuals who assisted Bilal Phillips on his book. York released a book called The Ansar Cult in America: Rebuttal to the Slanderers.
Okay.
And in that book, he not only addressed various issues, much of it he didn't touch that was actually in the book, but in the latter part of the book, he has each person that did speak to Bilal Phillips, their application, what they wrote, was in the book. Their personal information was put in the book, and saying, you can't look at this woman, she had 4 abortions. She had gonorrhea. She was, she went to jail for bank fraud, blah, 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 blah. These types of things were saying, these are the people that Bilal Phillips goes to, or Muslim goes to, these corrupt individuals.
Right. Okay. So that's exactly what multiple cults. I mean, the Church of Scientology is just probably the one that's biggest in pop culture that I can point to. But that's exactly a tactic that they're accused of doing. When someone leaves the church, then all of a sudden the things that they disclose to the church now becomes a tool against them. So we just joined. Why do I need a green room? What's going on now?
Well, we're going to get to the green. We're going to get to that in 1 minute. So So once you move in, here's the layout.
Okay.
You have what is called the brothers' bait. The brothers' bait, or the brothers' house, is where the men stay. When you move in, you got to stay in a dormitory style living.
Not just single men.
Single or married.
Yeah, as I just because I can understand the situation when you've got a group of single men, a group of single women, but I'm coming in. Let's say this isn't my girlfriend. This is my wife. We've been married for 5 years. We're still gonna split up, and she's gonna go to the female dorm, and I'm gonna go to the male dorm.
That's the sacrifice. That was the sacrifice, because you had to make the sacrifice. Even in the application, it asks you that question: are you willing to separate from your spouse?
Wow. And
that's what happened. So your girlfriend or wife goes there, you go here. Now you do have what's called mate time. And mate time usually is set up when you come in after peddling for the day. And depending on which city you're in, because like in Washington, it was a little more difficult for the brothers, because we didn't have much of a facility set up for that kind of make time. And the women can't just go, this is as Ansar. You couldn't just walk the streets. You had to get what was called a dunya pass. Dunya, a pass to go out into the world.
Right.
And you had to be accompanied by another female or sister.
Okay.
So the brother and the wife, they don't go off the property to go and just say go down to 7-Eleven and get something and then come back. It didn't work like that.
So obviously, there was no sense of just free movement.
No.
The organization had a lot of control. Now, real quick, I'm getting from one of the monitors. We have almost 500 people in the chat, and the likes are extremely low. So please take this time to make sure y'all hit the like button, because this story, to me, I think is extremely important, and people need to hear this. When you hit that like button, it helps the algorithm, the YouTube algorithm, and then other people will see this and they will be able to get this info. I'm not begging you guys for super chats, but if y'all can hit the like button, that will be a huge thank you. So, all right, back to the story, Chuck. This is so, all right, so we're split up. What happens to my child? So this is a situation, me, my wife, we've been married for 5 years, and we have, let's say, a 12-year-old daughter. Where does she go?
She goes to the little girl's house. You see, the girls or the boys and the girls were also in separate locations within the property. And depending on the age group, that's the group that they would be in. If they were young teens, they would be in that group. Usually, if you have an infant, that she or it usually stays with the mother.
Right. Okay.
But say you have a certain age child, they have to go into that area because you have someone who's assigned to watch over them.
Wow. Okay.
Because remember, you're making a sacrifice for the 144,000.
Okay. The children, that keeps being put kind of like the carrot on the stick for that donkey.
Yes.
Right. Anytime someone feels a little nervous about, man, this is weird. I'm not able to be with my wife whenever I want. I got to get permission to do this and do that. My child is in a totally different quarters from me. This is, whenever that little bit of doubt sets in, the carrot of this is for the children, this is for salvation, this is for a future that you couldn't even imagine or dream of, that carrot is put out there to allow you enough strength to say, let me stick it out one more day, one more week, keep it moving.
And that's the way that it was. And brothers had to go through that kind of stress because usually in a lot of these situations, the woman always left.
Really?
Yeah. In a lot of cases, the women left unless they somehow got involved with the person in charge of an administration. Because remember, as Ansar Muslims at the time, you were able to have a second wife.
Oh, okay.
So because York had concubines and he was into polygamy, hey, at one time the Ansar men were able to have two wives. Well, girlfriends, because of course you're not married.
Wow. Okay. All right. So, quick question here. Now, before you talked about how the brothers would go out, it would kind of be styled as if you're going out to save souls. You're going out to get the people, but the underlying message is go out and get some money, right? Yeah. My question is, what was the quota? You said that there was a quota. Yeah. What would a typical quota be? I guess this was around in the 90s. How much money do I have to go out and bring back and not kind of get in trouble?
Well, depending on the city, that really determined it. In Washington, D.C., the quota was 100 a day.
In the 90s?
Yeah. In the late 80s, throughout up into the mid 90s, because eventually that system stopped. But that was your quota. You had to bring in $100 a day. When you turn your money in at the end, there's a brother who writes on the wall who's the high person and who's the lowest. The person who had the lowest turn in, they had to do all day guard the next day. The two individuals, post 1, post 2. So you get no green room. The person who turned in the most money, which was usually Wadafa, he would turn in 150 because it as more brothers started moving in, you would have like 30 guys living in the bait.
Right.
Then they started turning in more money because you had a lot of hustlers turning in more money, and they started becoming a competition thing. But look here, I want to get the green room tonight. Well,
right.
I'm going. So instead of turning in $100, I'm gonna turn in 150. And then I say, I'm gonna turn in 155. You see?
Like, how much of this money do I keep?
Well, that depends. That depends on you. Meaning, you are requested to turn in your full quote.
And I'm supposed to give you everything.
It is ideal for you to turn in everything, but a lot of brothers, they say, okay, all right, I made 200 today. All right, I'm gonna turn in my 100, and then I'm gonna pull back because I still gotta re-up. I gotta go to the wholesaler tomorrow, so I gotta get my re-up. So I get my oils, my incense. If I'm catering to the women, I gotta get me some hats. I got me some purses from the Koreans.
Okay. I must have missed something because I was assuming, like many other cults, that they were going out and they were selling things that were actually manufactured or wholesaled by the headquarters organization. So, for example, if I'm in a organization and they produce a particular pamphlet, I'm required to buy this pamphlet at 50 cents per pamphlet every week. I need to buy 100, then I go out and sell it. But apparently, y'all weren't buying organization provided material. You actually had to go out and find materials yourself to sell.
No.
Okay.
You did get the books. You had to buy your publications because you got to. Listen, you could get them. Some they gave you like some old books. Some of the old language book stuff. They kind of make your table kind of look like it's got something on it. And then there were all the new books that are coming out on Christianity, Islam. You buy those books at a lower price, like a wholesaler.
Gotcha. Okay. So you did have stuff that was provided from the headquarters.
Oh, of course.
So, okay.
And the idea was that you focus on the paraphernalia that the organization is putting out. But because brothers know you can't make $200 a day selling just the books.
Right.
No matter how strong
it wasn't selling like
that.
Okay.
And especially when you're looking at the time, you got to be moving to your next spot at the rush hour.
Okay.
So you had to have your oils and your incense. You had to have something else as a side thing.
The real money makers.
That's
the things that was like you'd be
like
propagating the faith. That would get the crowd.
The go-go tapes was a perfect example. When Dr. He was like, okay, I'm gonna have who moved this, the resurrection, some of the True Light tapes. York would all the classes that he would give in Brooklyn, they got released on cassette tapes, and they had these colorful names, and they were on your table.
So he had a lecture. He had a lecture series that I'm assuming was called True Light.
Yes.
And that lecture series was probably something that was a main selling piece, like a hot tape to sell.
Yes,
but you needed more to actually meet your goal.
To be on your table in order to really generate the funds that is needed so that you can prevent being on guard.
All right, so we understand what the reward was when you brought in the most amount of money, right? That was the green room. You were able to have, special time with your lady in the green room.
Hold on. Again, the person with the highest turn-in got the green room. So if you turn in $150 or $200 and you go to the green room, the dude that turned in $180, he just get to go to sleep at night.
So no second place, no third place. You have to come in first or you last.
Number one, yes.
Okay. All right. So when you're number one, you get the green room.
Yeah.
When you're number 2 through all the way before the last, you
don't have all day guard. You may have to get up in a minute, depending on the person. Wakil, who was the one in DC who was doing it. If he put you on a list that everybody had all night. There's a guard, 24-hour day guard. So
and this would be at the bookstore.
This would be the bookstore would be around on the side, but it would be at different posts around the building.
Okay, so they were these are guards who are protecting the property owned by the organization.
That building that we're renting to prevent anyone from coming in or breaking into the store. We had the security.
Now, here's my question too. Sometimes in my research, these organizations have a rather over dramatic impression on who they really are. Was there really a need for the guards, or was this more of it showed a sense of strength? Because who was really trying to break in?
Well, let's put it this way. Not really, but depending on what city you're in, say in New York, of course you had to have it. In DC, and then when New York when that book, The Ansar Cult, came out, there began to be this little warfare going on between the Ansar and the Sunnis.
I can see that.
And it literally got physical, where people were stabbed, attempted murder, all this stuff.
Okay.
And so
I can see
York was in fear that the Sunnis were going to try to come and kill him. You see, so they really started putting a heavy emphasis on the guard situation after the 90s, while York was putting all these things attacking Islam. So that was on one hand, but it also, yes, it had to show a level of strength because York established a military within the organization called the Swords of Islam, the SOI, or the Mujahid is what we would call it. Right. And these were guys who trained. They were marching in formation, and they were they're practicing martial arts and all these other things, and weapon tactics.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. So they were designed to not only be a show of force, but also to combat any conflicts or if there was an attack by the Sunni Muslims coming in to attack the Ansars. So in the middle of the night, say at 3 o'clock in the morning, the brother will come to you while you're dead asleep, subhanAllah, salatu, guard. Because in addition to you being a Muslim, you got to do your prayers 5 times a day. And you got Salatul Fajr. You got to do subhanAllah, Salatul Fajr, wake you up. If you get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, you got to do guard from 6 to 9. Then the all-day man, who was a low man, has to do the guard from 9 to 9. If you're caught sleeping on guard, you either get punched or you get taxed. And being taxed is you continue guard from 9 until midnight.
Oh my God. Okay. All right.
All because you didn't turn in.
You didn't turn in. So that, to me, that's an extreme motivation.
Exactly.
For me to get out.
And that's why the brothers had to come up with innovative tools and tactics in order to generate.
Right. Had to bring in that money. Now, let's say I'm having a bad day. I know I'm the low man on turn in. I don't feel like doing guard today, man. I'm having a bad day. I don't feel like, holding posts and being a guard for 12 hours. What happens to me? Like I'm just like, you know what, whatever. I'm walking away.
Well, you're given a choice. You either go on guard or you get out. That's it. You either do what you're supposed to do. You know the rules. If you don't want to comply, you gotta go.
Okay.
And you don't listen. When you are put out of the community or when you have to go, you go on the spot. There is no tomorrow morning. If it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you got to go. If you with your girl, if she's gonna go with you, y'all gotta go now. I've seen people being put out in the middle of the night, kids and all. You go wherever. If you're in another city and you don't know anyone because you're isolated because you're in this community and you get kicked out, if you don't have any money to transport you from where you are to where you're from, you are in a very difficult situation.
All right. So, based on what I've heard so far, one way where the leadership of the organization was able to get money from the rank and file person was obviously they're buying materials from headquarters. So headquarters has all the books. They're going to publish the books. They're going to sell those books wholesale to the different bookstores around the country. They're going to buy it and then they're going to sell it at retail. So that's one way.
Or they're on consignment.
Okay. You're right. So our consignment. That's one way. How were other ways where money was funneled from the rank and file member and it went up to headquarters?
Well, here's another angle to it. Because the brothers had to go out and hustle, you had your girlfriend or they had to bring in some money too. And so
the females and the brothers.
Well, yeah, because the ladies, if you're with a guy or not, you have to get on public assistance. So you had to get on welfare, food stamps, the money that you get on that goes to the organization, which in turn goes to Brooklyn or upstate New York, Jazza Island.
All right, so family joins this organization, a family that's never really been on welfare, right? But now they're in this organization and they're told that they need to apply for welfare.
Yes.
Now,
my girl at the time was not feeling
right. she wasn't
Because they kind of look, they from Oxon Hill, and they kind of, look down on that kind of thing. And now she's confronted, well, you got to get on public assistance. It's for the mission.
Now, when you fill out for welfare, there's certain questions that they're going to be asking for. Based on the information that you're giving me, things wouldn't make sense for the welfare office. When you talk about your living conditions, rent that you have to pay and stuff like that, I feel as if they had to kind of fudge information on those welfare applications to actually receive, because there's even times where people will get checked up on. They will actually walk in and check and see if your living conditions match what you stated on the forms.
Yes.
How was the Nubians able to kind of navigate and avoid getting hit up for welfare fraud?
Well, by this time, it had been eliminated by the time the Nubian organization had come to pass. Okay. So by the time there was a Nubians or Nubians, the whole welfare thing was long gone. So this would be during the time we were Ansars, and then shortly after that we were Holy Tabernacle Ministries. Okay. So to compensate for that, you didn't put down your spouse. You're single, and you're living in a religious mission.
Okay.
And because the men are not around, because they're out all day, if someone comes around, they just see a bunch of women, a nursery, kids, if they're out of school that time, this is a religious retreat of sorts.
Okay. So that for the welfare office, that checked the box that they're qualified.
Yeah.
And they would receive, because it's not like they had the little snap cards and stuff like that.
Not then, no.
Yeah, not then. So they're getting checks, right?
Yeah.
In the mail. They would get checks in the mail. Were they allowed to have checking accounts of their own that they would deposit the money, or was the check just signed over to whoever?
Yes. That was how they were able to get it. And when you had to cash that check, you get your dunya pass and another sister, and then the brother who's there all day drives you in the van to the bank.
So you couldn't veer off. There wasn't no spending time. Maybe you go and pick this up from the store or nothing. You were personally driven from the compound to the bank. You go to the bank, get that check cashed, go right back into the car, and now that money's being turned over.
Turn in the food stamps.
Because the food stamps, because
it's all of it was welfare fraud, of course.
Right.
The food stamps, the gain on the food stamp was that because all of that goes, if you got 10 or 15 sisters and they turn it into money and they turn it into food stamp, we can buy in bulk. And then buying in bulk, that feeds everybody.
That's the game.
But you're not taking all that money and bringing back all that kind of food. You're going to bring back food, yeah. And it's usually lentils, carrots, rice.
Okay.
Nothing extravagant. And then the remainder goes wherever.
Right.
Now, I'm going to give you a situation that happened in Baltimore.
Okay.
And it made the news because in Baltimore back in 1990, I say around about 1992 or 3. We have a situation called the Shotgun Bandits.
Okay.
The Shotgun Bandits were Ansars who during the day were out peddling with the white on, doing their thing. But at night, they would take off the white and they would put on these black outfits, military type fatigues, and they would take the shotguns, pistols, and whatever weapons that they had, and they would go drive out to Ricerstown, different parts of Baltimore, and start robbing people.
Straight up, just
usually
stick up kids.
Yeah, usually, but the focus was on white people. You had to go and stick up devils. You had to go to Ricerstown and get Jewish people usually, and when the brothers would come back in, like I remember when dude came in, I was sleep down because in Baltimore there were so many of us. I was sleeping down in the masjid. Well, I'm sorry, the bookstore. And so the brother came in and he said, look what we got. And he just threw a pile of gold jewelry and dollars on top of dollars. Look at it. These are brothers from Baltimore that moved in. Now, they may have been criminals on the outside, but there was no real stringent test on the character of people who moved in. Because you did have drug dealers, you had ex-military people, people who went AWOL and joined the organization and needed to hide. There were people who were hiding from child support. The people used the Ansar as a vehicle to hide. Okay. And whatever they were doing there as being criminals, they brought it there. Now this was serious stuff. Yeah. Now here, it got so serious that all right, let me give it to you real fast. Okay. I didn't even know about it until I saw the guns. So one day, because I did the carpentry work in the Baltimore, because I was doing the calligraphy to put up the Arabic all over the community and all this stuff. So one day I just happened to look in the overhead of the door, and nobody goes up there because you have to have a ladder. So I just was looking for some tools, and I saw all kinds of guns, sawed-off shotguns, all kinds of guns up there, knives and everything. And I'm like, oh, what is that? Because I figured, if something break out, we protect it. And and it wasn't until I was seeing the guys go out at night, because I didn't go out with them, because I was like doing all my carpentry work. I didn't have to go out. And I guess they wanted people that they felt that I guess had that thing to stick up people. Gotcha. Get them stop. Strong arms. And so the brothers would talk in debate, and then that's when I found out about it, because they'd say, Abdul so-and-so, yeah, man, they're getting them Jews out there, boy. And so that's
how did the local leadership look at this? Was this something that was kind of done that they weren't aware of? Or like how did this fit in with the doctor?
It was unknown. It was not known who they were, because when they came out at night, they went out in the middle of the night dressed in black, and not all at one time. One go out one time, 15 minutes later, somebody else would go out. It was very low key.
So they didn't need the Dunya pass for this?
No. See, if you were in DC, they had it was a little more tightly operated. In Baltimore, there were so many of us. And then the young brother who was running,
it was hard to kind of keep up with it because it was so
Yeah, the dude who was running it at the time, he wasn't, he was from Baltimore, and he was kind of on that thuggish kind of mentality as well. Okay, he was a part of it, and so he said, look, this is what soldiers do, and it got to the point where I was talking to my girl at the time, and I was telling her about it, because I was like, what's going on? I was me and her was talking. I didn't mean for her to go and tell anybody. So she told one of York's ex-wives about what was going on. And then she made a phone call upstate and told, because she had his phone number, that was his ex-girl. And she told her what was going on. And so they had a family meeting, and then the brothers were very upset because they said that I told my,
Gotcha.
Why'd you snitch to, that kind of thing. I thought I was going to get shot or something, because, I ain't telling the tale,
Right. You ain't trying to blow it up.
So before that, you started seeing all kinds of stuff coming into the community. Because we had 3 floors, and the top floor was the green room, but the green room was more like an apartment up on the 3rd floor. That's how tight it was in Baltimore. And so they started having Nautica machines. They had a whole gym upstairs, And then with all the money that they was generating, they was passing it upstate at the time. They was sending it to headquarters.
It's almost like the mafia. You gotta earn.
You hit off the dime, and then of course you're gonna keep your personal stash.
Right.
But you got to take care of home base first.
Gotcha.
So you good. The administration ain't,
hands off, because they're bringing in money, hands off. Whatever they doing, keep it up.
Right. And York knew about it, but he allowed it to continue. So what he told was, y'all need to stop that. But they didn't stop that. Because their thing was, of course he's going to say stop. What do you say? He's getting money from this, but what are you going to say? You know, and it wasn't until they got caught doing it, and then York had transferred certain people to different places. But then by that time, they had continued networking. And eventually, they started doing it in different cities. Ultimately, I think 2 of them got killed in shootout with police. One was arrested at the airport with suitcase full of money. And I think, they all eventually ended. And it made the news because it was called the Shotgun Bandits, and it got linked back to this religious group in Baltimore on Airedale Avenue, the Ansars. But York was never implicated in it.
Not personally.
No,
he was never.
But he did benefit from that money, and that was a lot of money. They went out usually every night. Usually, like I think it was on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Whoa.
They wanted, but they had to go in different places though.
Okay.
And then one time they even robbed the savings and loan.
God, they robbed the straight up.
They put people in the vault. And I remember watching it because we was watching on the news, and because he was an Ansar, I guess he panicked because they said he had some little beads, and he kept on repeating some language.
He was taking his prayer beads during the robbery. During the
hostage thing. I think he gave him 100 years or something like that. But my point in saying all of this was that was another vehicle that brothers used, and they were justified because it was all about the mission. And that's what we were saying in the family meeting. Brothers were saying, those are soldiers. You know, for them to put their lives and livelihood and freedom in jeopardy, they're doing it for the mission. And you told your bitch about that. Excuse my language.
Right. So the ends justified the means.
Exactly.
Right? It didn't matter how they got the money. The mission was so more important. The money was the number one priority, not how they got the money.
Yeah. And the mission was a fallacy. And so my girl, her thing was, if they get caught, we all go down. That was what she was trying to convey to me. You tell them that, you know. But it was what it was. I have the news clippings and everything, and there's a brother I know who was right there during the whole time. It's crazy.
Wow. All right. Yeah. So in the clip that we showed when the show first opened up, the organization was in Georgia. So how do you go from a religious organization that's based in the East Coast, how do you get to a compound in Georgia? How does that happen?
Well, what had happened was York had let us know that he was setting up a teaching type of group called the Young Disciples. And these Young Disciples would be kids around the age of 18, and I think the youngest 16 to 18, something like that. There was an age limit, and these were going to be the new elite teachers. And they were going to be based in the new location in Atlantis. And Atlantis they would go from Jazir Abba in upstate New York, Sullivan County, Monticello, the Catskill Mountains. They would go from there down to Eatonton, Georgia, and the name of the land would be called Wahana, the Golden City.
Okay, so there's a promotion say, hey, we're going to cultivate a core group of young ministers? Like what would you consider this core group would be in this organization? I mean, I'm imagining this is going to be like just a core group of people who would be trained up to then proselytize and go out in the world and bring in more members? Like, how does that work?
Because their thing was they were going to be the elite teachers. They were going to be groomed to the point where they'll be teaching in universities. They're going to be, that's how thorough they were supposed to be. The Young Disciples. These will be disciples of Rabboni. By this time, York had changed his name. When he left Islam, He changed his official title from Imam, it's from Asai al-Imam Isa al-Hadi al-Mahdi to Rabboni Yeshua Bar el-Hadi.
All right, so you got an organization that started out as an Islamic group, an Islamic group.
He left it. He left the Islamic.
He completely just left and dropped the whole Islamic
and
thing.
It became
and
the
Nubian
we're Jews.
Hebrews.
Became the Nubian Hebrews.
How do you sell that to the people who lived at least 5, maybe 10 years of their lives as, in their minds, they are the most devout Muslims in the world, right? They're the most devout Muslims that they could be. How do you then, on Monday, I am the most devout Muslim in the world and I'm following the most devout Muslim leader on Monday? How on Tuesday does that Muslim leader explain to me that he is really a Jew and I'm a Jew? How does that work?
Very simple. Because you follow the Lamb wherever he goes. That was the term that was always used, because he was the Lamb. Back then, he was the Lamb of Allah.
All right, so let's say
but I'm putting that and then I'm gonna follow up. How he was able to do it was very simple, because he would teach that this was a school. He's taking you through a school, and Melchizedek in the Quran taught Moses in the various schools. So he's teaching you, the school of Islam, the school of Christianity, because he said the first school was Christianity and then Islam. But we were originally Hebrews before we started coming into this Islamic thing, which is not true, but that was a selling pitch.
That's how he can make the transition. And I mean, obviously there had to be a minority of people that was like, what?
Of course, there were people who laughed.
Yeah, they were just like, nah.
They left. So he said it's about shaking the leaves.
Okay, all right. Only the strongest and the most faithful are going to stay. Those who leave, they should have been gone anyway. That's why I'm
hold on to the rope as one community. That was part of the mantra. It was hold on to the rope. Okay, follow the Lamb wherever he goes. And when you follow the Lamb wherever he goes, that means from whatever state, whatever school he's teaching you at the time, don't argue with it. Follow the Lamb, because he is the guy. He is al-Hadi. I forget the Arabic word for that. He is I forget what it was, but anyway, he's the guy. He is the access. He is al-Qut. He is the access. You have to follow the Lamb, and it takes faith, iman. You got to have that. Faith. How can you not follow me after all the truth that I put out to you?
Okay,
it's not coming from me. It's coming through me by the masters who guide my pen.
All right. So now I'm a Jew. I believe I went from one school. I'm going to the next school. And within this school, he's talking about these new teachers, these young new teachers, and these teachers are going to be taught and trained in Georgia. Now, from outside looking in, if I'm a believer, I want to be one of those teachers. I want to be one of those students. What are the qualifications where I can enroll to be one of these elite new teachers? Because obviously, if you want to be in this group, you want to be one of those.
But you have to be a certain age. You have to be within that age group. If you're not within the age group, then you can't be a part of the Young Disciple program.
Okay.
Simple. That was how. And that eliminated a whole lot of people.
Yeah, that would eliminate all the old heads.
Exactly.
Only the newest members who wouldn't be as confused, because if I'm an older member and I've been in for a while and I was a dedicated Muslim, but then now I'm kind of going into this Jewish thing and I'm a little confused. I want to stay in because this is my community and I don't want to be out of my community. I'm a little confused. But when he's calling for these elite teachers and you're giving it an age range, it's going to be people who are not going to do a whole lot of questioning.
Yeah, the young disciples came in around 92, 93, just during the time that we were just about to move down to Georgia.
Okay,
it was in the early 90s that program was sold to us, and once the headquarters moved down to Edenton, Georgia, eventually, we were asked to move down into the city because we weren't doing the community living at this time. That's
okay. You can actually live on your own at this point.
Yeah, you can live with your family. You can go to, but you're still kicking out the cash. But you didn't have to live in a jamaat at the time, because Bilal Phillips, when the book came out, then that put all that on blast.
Gotcha. So now the critic, he had to take that away because now the critics have a book that talks about these things.
But
so
also,
if he does away with it, it kind of waters down the bad press.
On the property is different because on the property you have dormitory living. So the brothers lived on Tamaray. Back then, by that time it was called Tamaray, Egypt of the West.
The compound in Georgia.
Yeah, it was called Wahani, the Golden City.
Okay.
And so the brothers, they lived in what we call the barn. And then the sisters, they had the sister's house, which was further over near York's house.
How much does this stuff cost? Like people need to understand, this compound was huge. Do you recall how many acres of land this compound was on?
76 acres.
76 acres of land.
Yeah, I think it was 76 acres. And what we saw as far as the on the property was 19 acres.
Okay. How was he able to purchase that many acres of land in Georgia?
Give me 1 second.
Okay. Hey, Pocket Watchers, I want you to take this time to make sure we got over 500 people. Make sure you take this time to hit the like button. Just hit the like button. It costs you absolutely nothing for you to take a pause, get out of the chat, hit that like button, and jump right back in. This is an amazing insight into a cult in the Black community from the late 60s all the way through to really today. There's still little pieces of this cult that is still around today, and looking at the money that is sucked out of the Black community to be able to fund this organization. So make sure, take the time, hit the like button.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. All right, so now we're in Georgia. There's these new young disciples. There's an age range. So obviously, to me, I'm always looking at it, kind of skeptical. Having an age range on these disciples kind of cuts out a lot of the old heads that could try to make a claim of York is deviating, right? If you got someone who's been there since day one, they're going to have more authority in the organization to say York is deviating. But when you have a bunch of younger teachers, these guys are new. Anything that York says is fine with them.
A lot of the old Ansars, they were already conditioned to just accept the changes.
Really?
Because that is what it was all about. The only thing that's consistent in the universe is change. Follow me. Stick with me. I'm not going to lead you astray. So wherever he took them, he always had a philosophy and a doctrine to elevate it and make it bigger than what it previously was. Okay. So if he goes down to Georgia and he starts talking all the stuff he took it now, he's building on the whole Sumerian stuff. He starts adopting Zechariah Sitchin's teachings and start dipping it into chocolate and serving it to us. And so now we... Go ahead.
Because I want to make, because people, I need to kind of keep up with this. All right, so let's just kind of get to the school. List the school of thoughts, or the different schools that we've gone through so far. We started out with Islam, right?
I'm sorry.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
All right, so we started out with Islam. Then we went from Islam to Judaism, correct?
York's version of it, yes.
Yeah, his version. Okay, so then where did he go after his version of Judaism?
All right, real fast. But I want to go back on
No,
that
go
part
ahead,
alone.
go ahead.
Because remember, we were wearing the white stuff. So
Right.
then the sisters took off the veils, and they started, and the guys stopped wearing the white. And then he officially began the Nubian Hebrews, and we had to change our attire. So we started wearing yarmulkes. And we would wear what was called a khamis, which is an off-white outfit that it was cut. It was patterned after the way it's patterned in the Book of Numbers, insofar as how the Levitical priests or Israelites dress. So it would have the tassels, the fringes, and you have the tassel with the little one blue strip. We would have the gold sash around, right. We had all of the things that you could have that is literally based on the Bible.
Okay.
And we got the yarmulke. We patronized all the Jewish stores. Instead of us going into the masjid, we would go into what was then called the Menzarab, or the house of the sustainer. And then we would go to the Jewish stores. We had to buy a mezuzah, where you put it at the doorpost. And then before you go into the house of worship, you kissed it. So we started adopting Jewish-ism, but not calling it Judaism, because we were the ones who initiated before they did, is how we sold it. So as Ansars, we were the best Muslims, then we became the best Hebrews.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then that faded out because in the process of that, we were also Native Americans, because we were part of the Yamasee Native Americans. I'm sorry, before even the Yamasees, we were the Shoshone Nubian tribes.
Okay. All right. So how do you sell me on, now we're Jews, how does he sell now you're Native Americans?
Okay. Well, you are validated because now you have Native Americans coming up to Indian land in the Catskills. Because when we would go up to the quote 19 classes where York would come out teaching, he would always be dressed as a priest, a Jewish priest. I'm talking about the whole thing, Urim and Thummim type of priest with the breastplate of priesthood, the 12 jewels. He had that, and he would have the crown, and he would have the whole thing. He had everything.
He had the whole
money. He had the whole costume, and he had the money to make it happen. So that was when, usually people will come up for a Savior's Day or whatever, his birthday, where it would be Rabboni Yahshua Bar El Hadi. Now, when you're going to the properly enough state, as you're going there, you're going to go through a wooded area, and you'll see sign posted, "This is Native American land." Okay, very confusing.
Yeah,
but he was able to explain it because he had the gift of gab. Is that we are the Shoshone Nubian tribes. And that was because he being Dr. York, he wasn't even Malachite York at that time. He was just York. He claimed that the name York, because Bilal Phillips put this book out on him talking about he's not from Sudan, he's from Boston, Massachusetts. Right. So he posted his birth certificate in a book, and in that book, it lists the name York, and then he said that upon realizing and knowing the family line, it turns out that I'm related to Ben York of the Lewis and Clark expedition. And Ben York married a Shoshone woman, and that in the book Black Indians. I forget the guy who wrote the book. It's a red book with black and white photo. It's called the Black Indians. I'm just about to say his name. But anyway, on page 2 of that publication, you see what appears to be a Black Indian female by the name of Diane Fletcher. And your claim that is his aunt. Because he's really a Native American.
Okay. So York can find himself in any story. So because of Bilal Phillips coming out with that book, a lot of things had to change. But one of the things that a claim that he made based on, saying, his lineage and everything, tying him to the most holy of holies in Islam was kind of
Muhammad,
put on blast, right?
Muhammad,
right.
He could trace, because he had Jesus's holy name, because he said that, what is Jesus's holy name? Rabboni.
Okay.
Rabboni, Yeshua. But not to alarm you, right. He said that, I'm not claiming to be Jesus. This is just a title. Like Imam Isa, that's the title. It's the same word, only in Hebrew. Okay. This is how, but he sold the package
right
so skillfully because he had all of the attributes to go with it. He had the imagery to go with it. When we became a part of his fantasy, we had to buy the outfit.
Right.
We had to get the crowns. And a lot of us was like, good, well, you got to wear that Ansar stuff anymore. Now we get to walk around and do it a little bit differently. And so we had to get the camise, because he even unveiled it upstate, where this is going to be the new garb. And you see the brother walking out with the sister, the girls, the females, the sisters, they would be wearing Pakistani Indian garb.
Which is, to them,
chiffon, not a full veil, but the beautiful colors.
Yeah. To them, this is exciting. It's like you're having like a cult new fashion show.
Yes.
You got women who originally are basically in white burqas.
In veils.
Right. It's just in
the eyes and the hair.
Right. So then when you unveil, like, okay, the doctrine's changing, but in the back of your mind is like, well, at least I get to wear some cute outfits. Right? At least, you're showing me what my new outfit's going to be, and like whatever. The message is changing. But look at the cute outfits that I get to wear now. Yeah. So I can see the women buying in way easier, because at least they're not wearing white burqas. They got on these, cuter outfits.
Yeah. And because then you get these nails, you get these fancy shoes. So it was things became a little more easier going.
Gotcha.
So it wasn't so restricted.
Right. You blended into society a little bit more.
In a sense.
Yeah. Okay.
But on the flip side, those who lived on the property, they had to endure a different level of control than just the average person who was just on the outside. Because by the time you got the property and some people were living on the property, it became much more difficult, because the men, all you did all day was work. And
on
then
on
the property, yes. There were a couple of people who worked in town, and I think there was a store in Atlanta. There was a place on Edgewood Avenue in Georgia. Edgewood Avenue in Atlanta, I think it was. York had established an apartments there. It was called, I remember the name of it, but he became a landlord.
So, I mean, he got apartment complex. Now, are these apartment complexes where the believers are living in, or these are just, okay.
Nuwapu Gardens. Nuwapu Gardens, that's what it was called.
Okay. Yeah. And how are they paying for the rent of these apartments?
There was a rent, but I don't know how much it was.
Okay.
I didn't stay there, but I had to go through there, and that was one of the things everybody said, wow, we got the Nuwapu Gardens. But then there were the brothers who were the hardcore inner circle, the inner circle as far as the members who lived on the property. They lived in the barn, and the barn was just like in the Ansars, where you had a dormitory style. You had bunk beds that the brothers lived on or slept in. I spent one night there. It was hot, it's humid. The second floor, you got the same way what we used to have as Ansar, it's like military style. You got the bunk here, brother here, bunk over top of him. You have a sheet, you drop the sheet down for the brother underneath, or at least get some kind of privacy.
Okay. All right. So now we're at the stage where you're Native Americans. Was there another stage after being Native Americans?
Yeah, because he moved from Shoshone, and the logo for Shoshone was like a buffalo. What's it? It was a Native American, a typical Native American that we usually associate, with the long like hook nose, with the feathers. That was in the middle, and then on the side was 2 white buffaloes. And I think he was like the Black Eagle and all this other stuff. Because the people who came in or were invited to upstate to do these powwows, that was one of the gimmicks. Because even at the trial, it was pointed out that we started, pretending to be Native Americans. And by the time we got down to Georgia and publications were coming out and it started becoming more and more intricate, it went from Shoshone to Yamasee. And the Yamasee was supposed to be the original Black Native Americans on the East Coast, the Creek, Seminole, Yamasee. These were those people who were even older than the 5 civilized tribes. Oh. Cherokee and all that stuff. Okay. So that is who we became. We became those of the Yamasee Native Americans. And then from there, it started to metamorphosize into us being not just, because the term Nuwapo came when he was in upstate New York, where he started talking about it, but he said Nuwapo is a name that you'll know more about later.
Okay, he was dropping hints and little seeds of something to come.
Like that. He would do little things like that. Because he kept you always wanting more. And if it's the master, he's going to give you something more. And when he gives it to you, it's going to be out there, because nobody can touch it. So as we metamorphosized from out of being Native Americans, we became more associated with being Moors. And then we became by that time we left from upstate down to Georgia. By that time we were the Holy Tabernacle Ministries, HTM.
Okay.
And that, it was still part of the whole Judaic thing, but it was also an infusion of Christianity at the same time. And so by the time, hold on, I'm on the flow now. So by the time we started metamorphosizing away from the Native American thing, and then we become Moors, we then became HTM, but then instead of it being Holy Tabernacle Ministries, it was really Heliopolis, Thebes, Memphis, because we were the original Egyptians. But again, he's got a theology behind it to back it. Audio recordings, lectures to convince you of it. And so the name became the Nuwaubian, with the B, the Nuwaubian Nation of Moors. And then he started aligning himself with the Moors under Veridati Gostin El Bey, the Empress.
So the Moors, from what I know, you got the Moor Science Temple of America, Noble Drew Ali, right? Mm-hmm. Who are these Moors with the Empress?
These Moors would be, they would supersede the Moor Science Temple, because these Moors were the original mound builders. These people who came over here under the Treaty of Sidi Muhammad and George Washington. And these people who came as Moors in America, they were not to be confused with the slaves who were here, because these Moors were special, and we are part of them.
That's okay. All right. Okay. I mean, I can see why someone would want to buy into that. I mean, everybody wants to be special. I can see why someone would buy into that. So we went from Muslims to Jews to Hebrews to a twist of Hebrews and a little bit of Christianity to.
But they were all schools.
But they were all schools. Right? You're graduating.
You got to remember. You got to keep in mind. Melchizedek is taking us to another school.
Okay. All right.
You know, you got to go through the hate the white man school.
Right.
And then you got to go through the extraterrestrial school.
The extraterrestrial school. Your Moors. What came after being Moors? Was that when the aliens came in?
No, the alien thing has always been there. See, remember, back as Ansar's, York had claimed to be Melchizedek. He claimed to be the incarnation of a fictional character called Yanun. And Yanun is supposed to be an extraterrestrial being who resided on another plane. And later on, he unveiled to us who he really was, who was an extraterrestrial being from the 8th planet in the 19th galaxy called Ilium.
So, did any of this space stuff, did it have any foundation in real, like science-based stuff? Like, was there any type of, because I mean, the alien thing, all right, whatever. But does this galaxy actually exist? Like, is there some sort of star map where you can point to?
No.
Okay.
But York had his artists construct a 19th galaxy. And he released it in a poster. Yes, you had the 3 sons of Ilium, Utu, Asu, Shemesh. And then Risk, his planet, resided right down there. And it made its orbit all around. But by him linking in with the Zechariah Sitchin's teachings, he was able to incorporate that into it. Say, where Risk is here, and on the other side of the galaxy is Nibiru.
Okay, see, I remember a lot of talk about Nibiru in 2012 because there was all those conspiracy videos on YouTube. I've been rocking on YouTube for a long time.
No, because there was a book called 12/12/2000.
Okay.
That was what I know what you're talking about.
Okay.
And it was doing that, but see, now York started pushing the whole Nibiru thing in September of 1992, because that's in Zechariah Sitchin's book.
Okay.
That's when he started that. And then the publications started being converted into that philosophy. So York would have in the books, he would release a book called The Man from Planet Risk. And he would talk about that. He arrived, first he said he arrived at the signing of the comet Bennett, or that he first came to Earth and inhabited the body of this young boy, York. And he would follow him throughout life. And in 1970, that's when he would manifest himself, as that being Melchizedek. But he later changed the philosophy that it was Melchizedek who piloted the great craft Nibiru and came to Earth, and then he was dropped off. And Yanun was that being from the 8th galaxy, from the 8th planet in the 19th galaxy.
This is a lot. This is a to me, I feel like it was a tactic to just be overwhelming with the storyline. You make the storyline so overwhelming. There's so many layers to it that you kind of, as a rank and file member, you kind of just say, man, I'm just going to clutch to the little piece that kind of makes sense to me and roll with it, because there's no way that I can follow all of this stuff.
A lot of people felt like that. So, but keep in mind, he released book after book after book, verifying this stuff, convincing it to you, because then you can read it and then you can see, here it is, it's a documentation. Books that were taken from Sitchin's writings and a whole slew of other writers.
The straight plagiarism.
Absolute plagiarism. Okay. Yes, mosaic plagiarism.
But this is pre-internet. If you didn't have access to these books, to you, all of this stuff is original material.
Well, the internet was active, and York seized upon it.
Really?
Yes, because we had a brother who worked at America Online. He actually worked in the office. And so he set up the...
Give me 1 second. I got to explain to some of my younger audience who don't understand. They don't understand what America Online was, okay? America Online was one of the earliest internet service companies in the country, where they would literally send you a CD-ROM disc in the mail. Most of these people didn't even have a computer in their house, but they would get a CD-ROM disc in the mail where you would put it into your computer if you had one. Then you'd also have to plug your computer, not up to Wi-Fi, up to your telephone line, your land. See, we got a few younger pocket watchers who have no idea the words that are coming out of my mouth. But there was a landline phone, and you got on the internet through the landline telephone. It's these archaic stuff that y'all don't understand. But okay, so someone was working at one of the early online companies. It was America Online. Yep,
and he put York on, and we had established our own group, and we all had to get a computer, because he would go on every Sunday at 7:00, and we had to be there. In DC, we were a fam in DC. We had another brother who, Jarrell, that he was Forward 9. You had brother people in Baltimore. You had everybody there. So when we did, we would get classes online.
So he was an early adopter of when he saw the internet. He didn't fear it. He didn't reject it. He saw it as a tool to be used. So he was an early adopter, because normally when it comes to cults, they are extremely averse to new technology. They normally would say any form of new technology, they kind of use it as that's the mark of the beast and this, that, and other. But to York, he saw it as for the tool that it was.
He did that too.
Oh, he demonized it also.
He did demonize it also. He even wrote a book, Dr. York versus the Computer, or Imam. 2 books. One was called Imam Isa versus the Computer. Then another one was Dr. York versus the Computer, where he was a little more accepting of it, because when you go through the configurations, it matches line for line with the Muslim Dr. Rashad Khalifa, who was murdered by the Sunnis because they were able to find the code of the Quran being the sacred number 19.
Okay.
Anyway, let's move on.
All right, so he's online, and I'm assuming, because people don't even realize chat rooms. He's in chat rooms.
He's in chat
basically
rooms,
propagating
and we join him.
Okay.
And then when he starts battling Christians. Usually he goes into Christian chats. Then he would go to Muslim chats, or he would go into some metaphysical type of chat. And then they would be in this dialogue. So just anybody would be going at it. And they would have these little quasi debates. And then York, who is the master at marketing, he decides to take all the chats and then put them in books and sell them. And called Dr. York Debates Christian, Dr. York Debates Muslim, Dr. York Debates about the Holy Sabbath, and Dr. York Debates the Mason, Dr. York Debates the Jehovah's Witness. That's how I did it.
Right. So he's able to I see the brother for all his faults. I see in him his ability to capitalize on opportunities.
Yeah.
Right. I will say that he's able to see a void and recognize and learn how to monetize out of a situation, which is a great characteristic for a lot of businessmen. It's just that he's in this space of a cult. If he could have maybe been in another space, he could have actually used his ability to monetize in a way that would have been, not hurtful to other people. So
we have always said that he could have been one amazing writer of science fiction.
Oh yeah, the stories. Yeah. These could have been movies instead of people.
I'm sorry. In a nutshell, because I wanted to finish this last point. So by him aligning himself with the Moors down in Georgia, he then started releasing little publications and newsletters about Moors and the original Black Indians. So it was a combination of the Black Indians as well as the Moors. And then as time progressed, the Moors then metamorphosized into us being the Supreme Grand Masonic Lodge, or the Supreme Nubian Grand Lodge. Okay. And then from there, it moved into the shrine, the ancient order of the Mystic Shrine.
All right, so
and he literally began.
So now you went from Moors to Prince Hall Masons.
No.
Okay, all right.
You were better than a Prince Hall Mason because you were international. You didn't have the G. You had the pyramid.
Okay.
Because you were an Egyptian order. And then from there came the ancient Egyptian order. And then that metamorphosized into the Holy Seed Baptist Synagogue.
So now you're back to being Hebrew.
He started reverting backwards.
Okay. All right. So
and then he established the ancient. It was called the Egyptian. Well, how long has it go? Hold on, because I got to. The Order Charas Christ. Oh my God, I forgot how it goes. The Egyptian Church of Charas Christ, where you had, yes, you were an Egyptian Christian, but not Coptic. So he had a little bit. You had the Christian here. This is for the Christians. You were no longer a part of. He was no longer an Anunnaki, meaning he was no longer the grandson of Anu.
Okay.
He then moved away from that, and then it became he was Amanubi Ra'akata, which was a mystery ancient Egyptian pharaoh. He started that back in the 1990s, but he really promoted it in different stages all throughout the 90s.
So is he completely done and not mentioning the alien thing anymore, or is it just a different angle?
It was a different angle. It was a different angle because the whole Nibiru thing it reached its peak in 1997 when the Heaven's Gate cult, when they committed suicide.
Okay. And these are the people who are on the West Coast and they all had the Nikes and a little weird haircut. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, because he was, the whole thing with Hale Bop. And he was giving lectures because he was just rolling out books. Hundreds of books were coming out. Audio CDs were coming out like water. Okay. And he was putting them out in these lectures he was giving every Sunday, Saturday, Sunday, and sometimes Wednesday. He would give these lectures, and they immediately released them. And so when he was talking about Hale Bop and things like that, they thought we were going to commit suicide, because we were, by that time, that's like you saw in the video where the brother said, "Oh, Dr. York, he's from the planet Risk." So they thought we was going to start doing the whole Heaven's Gate thing,
right?
And his whole thing was, why are we building all of this, these pyramids out here in the middle of Georgia if we're going up there? So that was what he was trying to get us to do. However, we were still supposed to be waiting for the return of Nibiru.
Okay. All right. So that's another carrot on the stick type of thing. It's another thing to keep people kind of tied in. It's like we're almost there to the promised land.
Yeah. Almost. Not completely, but
not quite. But until we get there, keep turning in. You still got.
I have left a lot out, but for the sake of time and because I'm just trying to jump to various prominent stages of the development, I'm just going through it like this. Because when we was at one point, the sisters were Eastern Stars, had the full regalia. The older men for the most part, or guys who were in the Red House, they had the whole full regalia of Shriners, Black Shriners, not Prince Hall. Okay. As well as the New Nubian Grand Lodge of Freemasonry. So when in 1999.
Okay.
York had officially launched his Nubian Grand Lodge thing. So me and a brother named Jonathan Johnson were the only two brothers that were asked to come down and get raised. So he said that you're gonna ride the goat, and
hold on, you ride the goat.
Oh, that's a Masonic phrase.
Oh, okay. I'm
no, yeah, that's something now in light of everything else. But
right, okay.
But we were to go down to Solomon's Temple, and we were going to get initiated into the Nuwabian Grand Lodge. And you from the entered apprentice, fellow craft, and master mason. So we went through the whole 3 degrees that night. And of course, it's the whole thing that any other Masonic or fraternity, there was hazing going on. The whole ritual, the cable tow, all of that. We went through it all. Got beat, the whole thing. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So when you went through that ceremony and you came out, what? I'm assuming you came out with a new rank or new title, or what happens then?
No, you didn't have any rank. No, you were just still a brother, but you just was in the lodge. Okay. And eventually we're trying to get other people into the lodge who were members.
Because what type of new privilege do I have because before I'm not in the lodge. What's the thing why would you want to be in the lodge if it didn't give you some sort of now heightened authority or rank?
Because the master said you have to join the lodge, because in the lodge you're being given certain secrets that are sacred.
Okay.
Although you didn't get them, nothing you couldn't find in other books, because same thing with the ancient Egyptian order. These were little hustlers. These were
did it cost money to become?
Everything cost.
Okay. Everything cost.
Listen, you had to get your lessons. Okay. You had to get your apron. You had to get your ring, because I had to get it.
Now I got it.
Yeah.
Every time there's a new school, there's new books, there's new clothes,
everything costs.
Everything.
Yes.
You have to buy it again. That's like
everything.
Back in the day when you had your favorite cassette tape. Then there's now the Beatles are coming out with a CD. So now you got to buy the new Beatles the old Beatles album. That's not on CD. Now it's on the mini CD, and then now it's on the so he's coming at basically the same thing. He makes a little twist, and now you have to buy it all over again.
Yes.
Okay.
Even down to the ring, because he would be wearing a mysterious red ring, a gold ring with this red, and on the inside is a gold eye of Horus. And you wanted that. So in order for you to get that, you just got raised. You come out the next morning all sore, broke down, beat up, whelps on your legs, your back pinched. And then you go down to the bookstore in Athens, and then there's 2 rings there for you, but you got paid for them.
Right. Especially for you.
Not real gold, but his is gold. But yours is gold plate. It'll last for about a month.
Okay. All right. Now it's starting to make sense. Every time something changes up, obviously there's new stuff that you have to buy. To get into the lodge, you have to pay your way to get into the lodge. Yeah. And then obviously if you want to be, you have to have the right clothes on to do it. So you got to now buy the clothes.
Also, in addition, you still have the ancient and mystic order of Melchizedek.
What the hell is that?
That is another mystical order within the organization that goes all the way back to the Ansars.
So and how do you get into that?
Well, you as a member, you join, or you're encouraged to join, and then you have to get your lessons. And there's about 19 lessons, little pamphlets that you have to purchase in order to study, in order to practice the proper ritual.
Okay.
So you had to kick out for that. Then you got the ancient Egyptian order. And in the ancient Egyptian order, you got to pay to become a member. And then you got to pay to get the product. You have to pay the meditation CD. You have to pay for the garb. When you see James Ingram with the whole Egyptian headpiece and the whole thing that you see, that by that time it was the ancient Egyptian order, you had to buy that whole outfit. Everything costs.
Everything costs money. Okay. That part makes sense. All right. So now we're in Georgia. and they're building pyramids, as we saw. There was pyramids and stuff on the ground. Now, in the thing they talked about, this was going to be an Egyptian-style theme park.
Yeah.
What's going on with this Egyptian theme park in Georgia?
All right, real simple. You see, the problem for the ultimate downfall came with the zoning issues.
Okay.
And the zoning issues stem from the fact that when you're building on that property, and you have to get a permit for that for something to be built on the property.
Right.
Okay. So
right.
in York's case, here's where the downfall occurred, and you saw it in the video. As a matter of fact, that video was seen by the officials in town, because what had happened. So how dumb it was. What had happened was that brother that was giving a tour.
Right.
He made a mistake and said that that's a dance club.
Yeah, because they talked about it at the end. It was like she was like, a dance club? Is it open to everybody? Okay.
Bad move, because then the zoning commission came and sent the sheriff down there to accompany the head of the zoning, and they shut it down because you don't have a license to sell alcohol, to have a dance hall. And the dance hall, the club was built. It was 100 by 50 square silo used for storage, and they transformed that storage unit into a club.
Right, and they didn't have the zoning. They didn't have the proper. It wasn't constructed in a way where that would be safe.
They had a number of issues with the place.
Right, violations.
The violations. But the problem was they had no permit to have a club on that property.
Okay.
And that was the beginning of the end.
All right, so let's get into it. So if that's the beginning of the end, you have this this small town. Really, it's not like we're not talking about Atlanta. We're talking about
a little dairy town,
a little town, and you have this African American organization, a cult, move in. And they start building pyramids, and obviously doing things that the neighbors are looking at like, what the hell is going on?
But here's the thing: when we initially came down, we were told that we were to blend in with the people, and so we came down from upstate dressed as cowboys. I know this is hilarious, but
so,
that's what we did. That's what we did.
So were the people of the town dressed like cowboys?
No. So we're going down there to blend in with the middle of country town, Georgia.
Right. We're talking about farmers.
But we stand out.
Wear overalls.
We stand out because we dress like cowboys.
So you black cowboys, like the whole thing, like the 10-gallon hat. The cowboy boots, everything.
Stetson, the whole thing. Some brothers had spurs. And
this is supposed to help you blend in the 1990s in a dairy farm. Now, when y'all got down there, did y'all think, this is how they dress?
Man.
Were you led to believe this is how we dress?
No, but we already were familiar with that attire because they were doing that upstate.
So they're already dressing like cowboys.
York was wearing the cowboy hat and the elaborate printed shirts with like Native American printed shirts. Wally, one of his right hand man, he was wearing the whole jean, the Stetson boots. I had his boots. He gave me his boots. When he gave me his boots, and the joint had holes in them, right in the foot. But I didn't care because I had the master teacher.
You had the master teacher's boots, baby.
Man, I was stepping. I get on. Look, let me tell you what's so funny. Because he's taller than me, and I wear size 9.5. And he was like a 10 or 11.
Right.
And I'm wearing these boots, and they pointed. Man, I get on the bus in Southeast DC, man, they would be laughing. They said, dude, got on some roach killers. I was getting killed, man. But they couldn't tell me nothing, bro.
Yeah, because inside you had the master teacher's boots.
I had my Hopalong Cassidy white hat. I had my little shirt with the little you see the little tie. It's like
yeah, the little bolo tie. Like
I had the bolo joint. I had my Wranglers, and I had Dr. York's.
And this was in like DC.
This was in DC, coming out of Southeast DC. Man, but I had the boots, man. It was hilarious. Even the brothers inside was laughing at me, but I didn't care because I was like, I got the masculine boots.
Okay. All right, so y'all down there in rural Georgia with farmers dressed like cowboys from a Clint Eastwood movie.
Exactly. Yep. Good to bad enough. Like we was rocking it.
Okay. But y'all was supposed to be blending in. Okay.
Yeah, crazy.
All right. So,
and look here. And Tig, check this out. He was so sharp with what he wanted to do. He said, I'm going to invite Cleve Francis, a country western singer brother named Cleve Francis, to come and perform on the land, and I'm going to make him into white.
Did he?
No.
Okay. Okay. Did he at least come and perform?
He came. But there was nothing to come to because by the time he started having like the first Savior's Day, because he had a stage. There was a stage. It was a black stage, yeah. Because when he it was the first time that when we all were going to have the Savior's Day on the property, he came out with an off-white outfit, or very tailored with the padded shoulders, had his hair in a perm, had his little staff walking like a pimp, and he had an entourage. Check it out. He had an entourage of young girls behind him, and he came out stepping with that one cane. You could, man. He was like, because we hadn't seen him at that point by that time, because he had left from down to Georgia. Okay. And so when we had that Savior's Day, he came out and he was coming up the hill, and he had like 20 girls walking with him, and all of them had the Mystic Order of Melchizedek bag, and they put the crimson fez on with the tassels. It was something we had never seen before, and all eyes are beholding him.
I'm sure everybody's okay. So now the city officials are on alert.
Yes.
They already don't like y'all.
Yeah.
I don't care what y'all was doing.
Yes.
They don't like y'all for one.
Yes.
Now you're giving them an in to come in and start looking at y'all a little deeper because you're violating city code because you're building structures on the land that you did not get permits to do.
Exactly. And it became because of York's arrogance, and he wasn't going to take no for an answer. Every time they did something, here comes the zoning commission. And then the sheriff gets appointed in a position where he no longer is just accompanying the zoning commissioner. He becomes in charge of it.
So now he has more authority to just go in and start writing up the violations.
Yeah.
Okay.
He goes on it, and then he put the lock on the Ramesses, and that was heartbreaking because when York had
Ramesses was the club.
That was the club. Yes.
Okay.
Club Ramesses.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was beautiful. No doubt about it. It was beautiful. It was straight up club, and on the outside it was a replica of Ramesses temple.
Okay.
But it was the brothers and sisters doing it, and they did some very good paint and carving and all that stuff. Yeah, it was very elaborate. And
that was the Black Pyramid that we saw.
No, that would be the club off to the side.
Okay.
Because you had the club, and then you had Hathor Studios. He took York Records and brought it down to Georgia and named it Hathor Studios.
Oh, he had a record.
He still produced people there.
He was still doing music.
Yeah, he was still doing music. People he was producing. Infume would come by. I saw him down there a few times. Of course, Blue Magic, they performed that night. Joe Texas' son performed. Left Eye Lopez. A lot of people came down there, and of course James Ingram. He was. I mean, come on, what? Secret Garden. He was with everybody. So James Ingram was trying to tableek Stevie Wonder. He's trying to bring other celebrities into the fold.
Into it. Okay. All right. So York doesn't care. He's continuing to build structures on this compound that the city is telling him he has to get permits for. What ends up happening? What goes down?
Well, ultimately, he has to go into a hearing, and there's this constant thing in the media, and then the town press starts writing articles about it, and there's this cult, and then they start doing background checks into who is this group coming that are here, and then they trace it back to Brooklyn. Okay,
so by bringing that attention to yourself of having a conflict with the zoning commission, with the sheriff and everything, now you got the local press starting to do more than just see what's going on.
They digging into your background, and then they're finding out, oh, this guy, he was implicated in this situation, that situation, it's a cult leader. Then the picture starts to form. And then as a result of that, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution did an article or some expose on it. And then an individual, Pauline, saw it, and then she wrote a letter to the editors there as well as the sheriff, and was explaining to them that there is some sexual battery taking place on the property. And then that is what set it off. So it was a sister who was one of York's concubines with a child with him, who put the word out.
All right, so because I'm assuming they saw that there was interest in getting to the truth of what was going on. They saw that the article that they saw, and they wrote a letter to the editor, because now they see maybe now they see that there is a media outlet that may actually take up the story that they want to tell, or
because the press started becoming nosy, and then they started having hidden cameras, and they'll go on the property, and people would do stand outside. It became it was a publicity on one hand, but then it just went in the wrong direction, because then they were being constantly labeled as a cult, which is something that York hated. So he always told us, if they call you a cult, you just say culture. See, by doing that, then you can't be really a cult, because you're a culture. Because you don't know the etymology of the word cult. You see, the word cult comes from the etymology of the word for culture. So we are a culture cultivating our culture.
Okay. All right. So now that there is a seed dropped, that there's possibly some sexual abuse going on in this group. Through a letter to the editor. That's the first domino that drops. What happens next?
There was an investigation that was put in motion. It took a while. People complained about it. They took too long, and some even tried to sue the sheriff for not arresting York sooner.
Really?
Yeah. There were 2 lawsuits for $100 million because Sheriff Howard Seals didn't arrest York sooner. These were members.
So was there already reports that were being ignored by the sheriff, or what was the grounds of the lawsuit?
It's really
in general.
On my YouTube channel, there was a sister who, after I had talked to him, she wanted to talk to the sheriff and ask a question. So she went down to the sheriff's office and interviewed him. I hope she told him that it was a recording, because she recorded it, and I put it on my YouTube channel, where he was explaining that, when the sister wrote the letter, they did investigate it, but that he was getting stymied by the then governor at the time, because York was able to. This is interesting, because York was pretty. They dealt with him with light gloves, because like in the 70s, he kind of got through, because it was at a time when they're coming out of the 60s and the whole COINTEL thing, and you know, black owned. They didn't want to come off and going after him and his organization because they're harassing another black organization.
Right. He was already trying to portray himself as the victim of a overpowerful government that was trying to squash this really good black movement.
And we're in this hick town, you know, the rednecks, everybody in town is a Klansman, and the sheriff, they got it in. But York, he did it to himself because he started bringing that unnecessary attention on himself. And then they started doing background, they started doing research into the organization, get Miles Phillips' book, and then with the sister writing the letter, that's when an investigation that took a while, that eventually other people started leaking out, because people who would come down for Savior's Day, some people would leave. There was one young lady, Ginger Chang, who was a Korean girl who was living there. She did the books, the Blue Revelation book. She did the El Injil. She did the book El's Holy Torah. She was responsible for those publications. And of course, being in the office, the office workers didn't get paid for this stuff. And most of them were underage girls who were ultimately his victims. But Ginger Tang, she wanted to get out of there. And she left because, you know, she had got word that York had molested her son. And so she literally got on the bus with a group going back to Philadelphia. And then she put the word out about it as well. And then there were other people who left, and they started putting it on the internet that they started, because like York was on there, his handle was Egypt 3x3 with an I, Egypt 3x3. And so they would send those bomb emails to everybody that's on his email list. Right. And there was a lot saying still effing 7-year-old boys, and they put those things out. And so most people don't know about that. I mean, at least I know, you know, just general people understand that, you know, there was child molestation of young girls. Yes. I don't think they kind of talk about as much as the child molestation of young boys. Right. Most people don't really bring that part up, but that was part of the case, and that was part of the indictment and trial. And those male victims did testify against York. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So
even his closest concubine, Kathy Johnson, he was molesting her youngest son, who's in transition now.
My God. Okay. All right. So now we have the government looking into these allegations of sexual molestation of young girls and young boys.
So the sheriff was explaining that he wasn't given the green light to really go in on them. And it wasn't until something that George Bush had done that gave the okay to be able to fully go in on it, investigate, and then try to go to the prosecutors or officer or whatever and get a search warrant. Gotcha. And yeah, musical soul trial. Somebody put in the chat, musical soul trial. Yeah. Imam, Tarners, Jazz, all that stuff. You're right. Yeah. I'm just looking at the chat.
And I think one thing that people need to think about too is the time frame of what happened in Waco, Texas, when the FBI and the government was storming another cult. This is a white cult.
Ruby Ridge,
all the backlash and the bad PR that the government got from rushing in to those cults.
Yes, ATF. Yep.
Now you got another situation where they're probably thinking, well, we got to make sure we handle this correct, because the last time we did something like this, people died and it looked bad on us and there was a fire and everything. So it's, you know, I can kind of understand why the government would be like, if we're going to do this, we got to do this right.
And you know what's interesting about that? One of York's son, one of his oldest sons, Jacob York, had went to the FBI and basically pleaded with them not to allow this to turn into another Waco.
Okay.
You know, and that was very strategic on his part, because eventually the FBI had set up surveillance directly across the street from the property in Tamaray. So directly across, they had surveillance there in someone's home, and they were monitoring York's comings and goings for about 2 weeks.
Okay.
And that was how they were able to, once he was he had left the property and was in Milledgeville, I think it was, that was when they got him in the parking lot.
Okay, and I can imagine that most of the security would travel with him, right? Like if he's out and about, he's got security with him.
Now, York, he had his girls with him. The security, the guys who had pistols or guns, they were at the pylon. They were at the entrance of Tamaray. They were dressed like rangers, you know, with the big wide brim, you know, looking like Dudley Do-Right.
Okay, yeah. I got you now. So he didn't. So they waited for him to leave the compound. I guess they noticed and they was able to get his pattern of behavior. He would leave and he wouldn't have any security with him. So that would probably be the best time to arrest him.
Yeah, but you know, it's kind of, I don't know how to really put it. You know, York, he wasn't roaming around town with a big entourage of security. He wasn't like that. He would be out with some of the girls. He would be with Eva, Sakina, Safat. He would be with them, the girls. You know, Khadija, Marion, Astir, Nicole. He would be with all of them. But the brothers, they was working on the property. The guys who were doing security, you know, had their walkie-talkies and everything. They just doing what they do to, you know, keep anybody from running up on it. And then let me tell you how deep it was.
Okay.
They got so thorough with it. And remember, York had developed this con lane going all the way back to around 1990. What was first called Nubic and then Nuwapic, which was because the kids were taught Arabic and were you have to pay for instructors to teach the Arabic. We have Sudanese Arab speakers to teach the children, as well as Moroccans. So over time, you know, these children developed their own dialect of Arabic. You know, and York saw this
kind of like a slang.
Yes, a form of Arabic slang that York was able to transform that language form and sell books called Nuwapic. He marketed a lot.
He knows how to monetize them. So he sees these young children who were being tutored and taught how to speak in Arabic.
Yes,
as children do. They naturally start to kind of have their own slang where it's kind of half Arabic, maybe half English, and it's like an inside thing.
Yes.
He sees that and says, I can make some money off this.
And he did. Because we bought it stock and barrel, because we was like, oh, now we finally have a thriving culture. We don't have to worry about the Arabs telling us how to pronounce Arabic words. We got our own language. We got Nuwapic. And only we can speak it. Now, he marketed it, and then he started jazzing it up and saying, well, Nuwapic, this is the language that the Anunnaki spoke to the Sumerians. And then when we got into the Egyptian thing, he said that, well, the Sumerians, the Anunnaki, were really the Neteru of the ancient Egyptians. And Nuwapic is what they spoke. And here's the script. So the script went through various stages. Okay. You had this funny looking, weird kind of writing that looks just like the writing in that episode of The Twilight Zone called The Visitor. Something like that, where Ed Cassidy, the guy who played Lurch on the old black and white Addams Family, he was this alien, and then he pulled out a book. And
I know this episode. I know. I'm not going to spoil it. I know that. I used to watch a lot of TV with my father, so I know this episode. Go ahead, please. Yeah. I know this episode.
And so in that episode, you notice he has this book.
In the book, yes.
And on the cover of that book, that was the writing that was the early Nuwapic.
And for the people who haven't seen this episode, I'm gonna spoil it for you. You're never gonna watch this episode, but it's an episode of the Twilight Zone where this alien comes down and he has this book, and they're getting people, and the people are coming on the planet. He's supposed to be taking, I think he's taking the humans to his planet or whatever, and the scientists are trying to translate the book. And at some point, maybe halfway through the episode, they find out that they're able to translate the cover of the book, and I think it's "To Serve Men." Right? Isn't that what it was?
Yes,
it's
that was the name of the episode.
Yeah, the name of
To Serve Men.
To Serve Men. So that was the name of the book. So that kind of put everyone at ease. They're like, oh, okay, he is here to help us. Then at the very end of the episode, when the scientist, the lead guy who was against everything, he even believes that everything is good. He's walking on to the spaceship. His assistant comes running out and she says, "We translated the rest of the book to serve men. It's a cookbook." The door shuts on the scientist, and he's whisked away into space. Now, it's been years since I watched it. But that's
you got it right down to it.
To serve men, it's a cookbook.
Yes,
that's the language
that was your Nuwapic.
Yeah, that was Nuwapic.
Yes, that was the early form of Nuwapic, and that was the Nuwapic of the Riskian. It was called the Riskian script. This is the script that the people of the planet Risk spoke and wrote. That was that, and then it metamorphosized into another form, which was like taking bits and pieces of Medu-Neter, Egyptian writing, and then through the innovation, he started developing new words, adding Latin words, Hebrew words, Spanish words, French words into the fold of the Nuwapic vocabulary. And
right, you gotta fill in the gaps, because obviously the children only had so much that they were talking back and forth, so he has to fill in the gaps.
Exactly. Yeah. Not the whole entire vocabulary of Nuwapic they were speaking. No, this all came over time. Okay. You know? Okay. And so book after book after book. Matter of fact, the first one was the third one was, because at first it was just these two little, like maybe 5-page little pamphlet, real thin.
Right.
And then it metamorphosized into this big book of 600 pages, 300 pages. That thick, called the Teacher's Guide, the Guide to the Nuwapian Language.
And you're buying, every time a new book comes out, you're instructed to buy. You're buying these books.
You had to buy the book. And I mean, this is why when we get into this whole economic thing, he made millions off of these gimmicks. Mm-hmm. Millions.
Gotcha.
In addition, he's making millions off tax-free money from the brothers who's turning in hundreds of dollars a day for years.
Right, because it's a tax-free organization. It's a religious-based organization. Yeah. And here's the deal, people. When it comes to churches and stuff like that, the organization itself is not taxable. So any money that this organization makes, it's not going to be taxable. But if you pay the individual, be it the priest, the pope, the master teacher, whoever, if you are literally paying them money, then they're supposed to report it as taxable income. But if you have the organization basically buy all your stuff for you, then you don't have to report it. So it seems as if he just was basically having the organization buy all the things that he wanted for himself. So he didn't really have to claim any of this income for himself. But my question is, did he have properties that was actually in his own name and not in the name of the organization?
Yes, that was the property at 404 Shadydale Road.
Okay. Because if he had property in his own name, then that is absolutely taxable to himself.
In fact, I have the copy of the signing of it, where he signs his name. This is because he had it. It's so much to go into. Dwight York, when he signed this, the deal to purchase those 100. What did they say? 40 acres? Yeah, 76 acres. When he
in Georgia, this is the land in Georgia.
This is the property in Georgia, and he signed it Dwight York. That was the name that everybody said his name is not Dwight York, but that was what that he said because he grew up with that name.
And plus, this is a legal document that he's writing, so he's going to do that right.
But at the same and at the same time, he had his name changed twice. Okay, he had his name changed because he got arrested for falsifying government documents, which was a passport, because he wanted to have the name Mahdi on his birth certificate or passport so that he can combat Bilal Phillips saying that he's not of the Mahdi family. So he got arrested for that, and he went. He had to do spend weekends in jail, and he didn't have to serve any time. By him having his name changed, it went from Dwight York to Isa Abdullah Muhammad, and then from there he got his name changed to Malachi York.
Okay,
so the first name Malachi, it went from Isa Al Mahdi, because that's what he had to in the latter part. Then 2 years later, he had his name officially changed, and I have all this stuff documented on my website. Or you got to go to what was your teacher's real name.
And this is Nuwapiism.com. Okay.
And what we did, we have the actual documents from the name from the courts. Mm-hmm. Where his name is changed, where he signs it, your name goes from Dwight York to Isa El Hadi El Mahdi.
Right.
And then when he got his name changed to Malachi York. But when he made that purchase, it was still under the name Dwight York.
I wonder why he did that.
Well, it wasn't supposed to get out in the public. You mean change his name?
Right, yeah, I mean, I'm just saying, because if the last time he legally changed his name, it wasn't Dwight York, why would he sign the document for the land in Dwight? I thought he changed his name legally to two different things since then.
Okay, so the name Malachi had not, that part of the name wasn't official until about 2 months later.
Oh, okay. I got you. Okay.
So he had to sign it at the name that was still his legal name.
That was still his legal name at that time. Okay, right. I got you.
Because he would have Dwight York, also known as Isa El Hadi El Mahdi.
Okay. All right. I want to give the people.
The witness was Kathy Johnson, and of course, I forget the name of the person that they purchased the land from. Okay. But all of this is documented.
It's all documented on your website, Nuwapiism.com. Moderators, if you could please put his info. I'm going to have all his info. If you're watching this on the replay, it's all going to be in the description of this video. Now, what I would love for us to do, if we can go over the trial and then give the audience an opportunity to ask you some questions, that would be great. So let's see if we can get through the trial, which is from what I believe I read, it is the largest child abuse trial or case in U.S. history, isn't it?
I don't know about U.S. history, but I know that it was the largest sex abuse case at that time.
At that time.
And definitely in the state of Georgia.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. All right. So York is arrested. He left the compound. The feds were observing him, noticed that when he leaves and he goes about town, he's not with a large entourage of security. He's normally just with a few girls. So they arrest him.
And at this time, it was he and Kathy.
Okay. So they arrest him. What is going on in the community when y'all find out York is arrested?
Well, I was in Baltimore, and we got a phone call, said turn on the CNN, and we were like, oh no. Mm-hmm. And the CNN was running at every headline news, and they were showing them raiding the land, and I mean it was just we were in a state of disbelief. Couldn't believe it. I could not believe it, because I was like, oh man. But I thought the book Man of Miracles, he said that when the police came to get him once before in the book, that he dematerialized and appeared across the street.
Oh, So he's already on record saying that there was a previous time when the authorities attempted to apprehend him,
Yeah.
he was able to use his powers
Mhm.
to dematerialize and appear
across the street.
Across the street, so he could not be captured.
Right. I have this documented on the NeWapianism.com website. It's called was Malachi York a man of miracles or a master of manipulation, something like that. So there was a book called The Man of Miracles in This Day and Time. And in that book, it is a series of tutorials about members who witnessed eyewitness accounts of the master teacher doing miraculous things, raising the dead, being able to manifest the sacred ash, being able to increase in size from his normal height of about 5'7" to 6 to 7 feet tall.
So one of his claims of powers is that he could change his height from around
5'7",
5'7" to 6 foot tall.
6 to 7 feet tall. And to this day,
6 to 7 feet tall.
Yes.
Okay.
People to this day, members are still pushing that nonsense. Saying, I saw the master teacher. I saw him. He was one size, he was this type, and then he went back, and now he was at 7 feet tall. I don't care what y'all say. I saw it.
See, here's my issue. What would be the practical application of a power like that? If I was in a comic book, they would say that's one of the lamest powers you can have. You can only grow from 5'7" to 6 feet, or 5'7" to 7 foot. That's not like you're Ant-Man. It's not like you're like what's the practical application of that power?
You know what that is? I wish that we'd have thought like that. Because you say that's the best you can do.
Right, like that. I mean, the only difference you can do is like, okay, I'm 5'7" and now I'm 7 foot tall, so I can dunk. Like, other than that, having the ability to dunk a basketball, I don't see what type of advantage that would give you.
That joy was hilarious. Look, now these are members. This is in York's book,
right?
As Ansars, and the cover you see I will share my screen. You see him with the sacred ash, and he wants, by way of the book, he wants us to believe this stuff.
Okay.
Because he's saying he is the man of miracles.
Gotcha.
It's true because we got witnesses. And then here's what funny. When he was in Jones County Jail before the trial, he was sending letters around talking about how certain of his childhood extraterrestrial visitors had visited him at the Jones County Jail. And they assured him that he's cured of his hereditary angioedema, and also not to worry about the trial, and that he levitated out of his cell, and that the ship was on the outside of the jail, and this is all on video, and even prisoners saw this. This is what he.
This is the reports that the believers are getting.
No, this is York writing letters to us. I put it on my website. I got the letters off of a NeWapian website.
So he's saying that he's levitating in his cell.
Yes, I did a video and an article on it.
That people are witnessing. They're seeing the flying saucer outside of the jail cell.
And
this is what
video.
Is this something that's happening like during the trial, after the
This is before the trial.
This is before the trial, so he's just like in the hotel. Okay, but he's still locked up though.
But he was
he's still locked up.
Look, listen. In later publications, he said that he allowed himself to get arrested so that he could determine who are the real and true followers. That's why he allowed himself to be taken away. The same way he said that W.D. Bard, he's going to come back in his own due time and prove to the world that he is alive.
Okay.
So York is doing that thing.
So he's done. Okay. So now this him being arrested for child molestation and being put on trial isn't a test for him. It's a test for the believers.
Yeah.
And if they're true believers, they will continue to support and continue to give him money to help him.
All of this, because they had, listen, they were requesting monies from everybody because of the legal issues and the legal fees that had accumulated. They had to raise near over $2 million just to pay the attorneys.
Right. Yeah.
$2 million. We got it documented. All this is on my website. There's an article ask Prince York, was Malachi York born in Ghana? And in that we have all the documentation from the office of how much monies was collected and how much it cost on these legal issues. And it's right there for the public to see.
All right. So money's being raised. It looks like he has a $2 million legal defense fund. What happens in trial? Because there's two cases. There is a state case and there's a federal case, right?
All right, here we go.
Right.
This is how it goes. All right. So initially, York pled innocent when he was charged. He pled innocent to the issues.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So he went with that narrative all the way up until discovery came around, which was that his blood work was analyzed. Okay. And so when it was sent off and it came back that he had it had herpes simplex 2, as did two of the listed victims.
And these are underage children.
Yes, these at the time were underage girls. These were the listed victims of the 18 or 13. These were a part of that. And what had happened was York was advised to plead guilty because it would be a difficult task to try to prove to the jury that you, the leader, and all these things associated with that, and you have a sexually transmitted disease that also at least two of the victims had.
Right.
Okay. And so
up to that point, he was saying he was innocent.
He was saying he was innocent.
But when the medical stuff came out, he was advised by counsel.
Yes. And that's when we see York in the state and the federal venues pleading guilty. In the state, he pled guilty to 208 counts of child molestation. That's not saying 208 people.
Right. It's a different 208 documented times where
incidences that took
engaged
place
in the activity.
Yes.
Okay.
And by him pleading guilty there for in the state child molestation, there was a case. There was rape and witness tampering. And in the federal venue, he pled guilty because there were 4 counts that he was charged with in the federal. And so he pled guilty in the state and federal in January of 2003. Now, what had happened was his plea was accepted in the state.
Right.
All right. Now the narrative now with the cult is that, well, he was before he was drugged, he was coerced, he was tortured, and all this other stuff. That's why he pled guilty. So that's what he said, and that's what they run with to try to give York some kind of wiggle room. So what had happened was, in the federal case, the sentencing guidelines, they have to go through the sentencing guidelines to determine the time. The judge at the time felt that 15 years was too lenient for such a wide range of crimes, and that he wanted a minimum of 20 years. And because that agreement was not reached, then it went to trial. So York in the state never retracted, never took back his state guilty plea, nor did he take back his federal guilty plea, but his attorneys on his behalf, even though he himself said that he doesn't care one way or the other. His attorneys on his behalf said that we would like to pull back the guilty plea, but it was rejected because York didn't even want to accept it. But that was because the judge didn't want him 15 years was just too lenient. We wanted 20 years. So that's when it went to trial. So all the way up until that trial, which was to take place in January of 2004, York had his legal counsel, and then he fired his attorneys and hired a substitute attorney for the state case, which was Adrian Patrick.
All right, real quick, I want to take a look at it. I'm going to put up here on the screen, and we can see, I believe this is him in the state, right?
Yes.
This is him in the state court actually pleading guilty to the state case of child molestation. Is that correct?
Yes, that is the state case.
All right. So
influence any alcohol, drugs, or narcotics. You understand you're charged with 40 counts of aggravated child molestation. That you could receive a maximum sentence of 30 years in confinement for each count. That you're charged with 34 counts of child molestation. That you could receive a maximum sentence of 20 years in confinement for each count. That you're charged with 1 count of sexual exploitation of children, and you could receive a maximum sentence of 20 years in confinement. And you're charged with 2 counts of influencing witnesses, and you could receive a maximum sentence of 10 years in confinement for each count. And that you could receive a minimum sentence overall of 10 years on probation. I'm telling you the most and the least. You understand that?
Actually, Your Honor, it was 10 years. Aggravated child molestation, minimum 10 years in confinement.
But on them would be 10 years. You understand that? You understand you have a right to an attorney, and in fact, your lawyer, Mr. Aurora, is here with you and representing you. Is that correct? I'm going to inform you of certain other rights that you have, Mr. York, and inform you of the fact that if you plead guilty, you give up these rights. You have a right to trial by jury. You're presumed to be innocent. You have a right to confront any witnesses the state presents against you. You have a right to subpoena any witnesses you want to appear and testify for you. You have a right to testify and offer other evidence if you want to. You have a right to the assistance of an attorney during the trial. You have a right not to incriminate yourself. You have a right to plead not guilty or remain silent, not in any plea, and in either case automatically obtain a jury trial. You understand these rights, and understand if you plead guilty, you give up these rights. You heard the recommendation the state made. Is that the recommendation you understood the state would make? Did you, in fact, do what the district attorney, Mr. Bright, told me you did? How do you plead, guilty or not guilty, as to all the indictments that were cited by the district attorney? Did anybody force you or threaten you in any way to cause you to enter this guilty plea? Did anyone promise you anything to cause you to enter this guilty plea? Are you satisfied with the services of your attorneys, not only Mr. Aurora, but your other attorneys? Were you able to hear and understand my statements and questions to you? He's under oath that he enters plea.
Your Honor, we've gone up this. It's withdrawal of not guilty.
all right, so that was him confessing and pleading guilty to the child molestation charges to the state.
And you know what's interesting in that? Yes. The gaslighting is being perpetrated on the people by way of the cult, because they're saying he didn't plead guilty. He didn't say anything.
What?
All he did was move his head. He didn't plead guilty. That's what they literally.
You can hear.
I heard it today on one of their own groups. In one of their YouTube channels, they were saying, "See, the master did not even plead guilty."
We just saw him saying yes, sir, yes, Your Honor. The judge even asked, were you influenced by any way? Did they promise you anything? Are you doing it on your own will? He even asked, are you satisfied with your attorneys and the job that your attorneys are doing?
Right.
He didn't just shake his head. He also had to say it out loud. Yes.
He said it to where the judge and those right in that immediate area could hear.
Yeah. Because they won't allow you just to shake your head. You have to say it out loud. It has to be a part of the record. There is a court reporter that has to hear it. You can't just say, You have to say yes.
Yes, that's right.
That's how courts work.
And here's the thing: at the trial, they didn't say that. Well, I didn't plead guilty. That wasn't brought up. Adrian Patrick didn't bring that up. Manny Aurora didn't say that. So the liars are the Nuwaubian cult, because you can see what took place, but they're saying don't believe your lying eyes.
Okay.
And these people are still running around saying that he didn't molest anybody. As a matter of fact, it was his son who did all the molesting, and they just substituted the son for the father, as if the victims don't know who's who, even though the victims were in court and they pointed at him. And then you look, when I put the sealed transcripts out, because the judge unsealed them,
right,
people were able to read it, because on another channel, CCTV, we were reading it. Me and one of the victims were reading it. I read the part of Adrian Patrick cross-examining Tariq Noel, and he was reading himself, and we were going over it. And we could see that, they tried to tamper with the witness to get them to say that it didn't happen, so that there would be a discrepancy in it.
Right. Tried to get a mistrial, but it didn't happen.
No, because
they pointed out it was Dwight York who did this.
And what is he wearing? The blue suit. And it gets very, very explicit on both the boy part and the girls.
Okay. All right. So
we don't have to go through that.
Yeah. So obviously he's found guilty.
Ultimately, he is found
guilty.
guilty.
Given, I believe, 135 years.
Okay. Let me. Can I share my screen?
Sure. Absolutely. Pull it up, and I can show it.
Or do you want me to get? Matter of fact, can I send it? How can I do it? Because I don't have your messenger, and I don't have it.
Oh, okay.
How do you want to do this?
It's up to you.
All right,
you should be able to share. There should be a share button.
Yeah, I can share. No problem.
Okay.
All right, so let me share my screen, because I wanted, because you brought that part up, and I think that is significant. All right, so here we go. Oops. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
All right, 1, 2.
Got it. I see it.
Okay. All right, so here.
Okay.
You see this? Okay.
Yeah. United States District Court.
All right. This is an article it did, because they pushed this thing. If Dr. York was not convicted on child sex related crimes, then what exactly was he convicted of? And so I through the PACER, because the PACER has all the federal documents right here.
Right.
So right here, this is the amended judgment in the criminal case. Okay, so here we have, he was tried on 13, and he was convicted on 11 of those 13.
Okay.
Right here. All right. So C. Ashley Royal was the judge in the federal case. Mm-hmm. And here's what we have. He was convicted of 135 years. So, let me get right to it. Here is the judgment. Okay, the defendant is hereby committed to the custody of the United States Bureau of Prisons for an imprisonment for a total term 240 months on count 1, 240. This is in the racketeering. This is 240 in 2, 60 months in 3, 180 months, on and on and on. Right. And that culminated into 1,620 months. Yes, and that is 135 years. And he was initially sent to Leavenworth, Kansas, to serve out his sentence. Yes, and now he was sent there on 9/2/2004.
Wow.
Yes. So, the conspiracy to commit racketeering violations, the racketeering acts, the conspiracy to transport minors in interstate commerce for unlawful sexual activity, that conspiracy to travel in interstate commerce for unlawful sexual activity with minors, and conspiracy to structure cash, because the structuring of the cash thing was, I'm gonna come back to that in a second, but that was when he would send individuals to make deposits. Okay, and they brought in specific individuals at the Wachovia Bank at the time who witnessed all this stuff, and they've had 5 females, and they were bringing in monies and making deposits, and they used this thing called smurfing, I think it's called. And it says the Wachovia supervisor because whoever is conducting the transaction, we would need their identification put on that report. It's needed for all government records. It's a report that we fill out if a company or individual deposits large sums.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So let me kind of explain this to people. So it's somewhat general knowledge now. Most average people understand that if you do a transaction with the bank over $10,000, that the bank has to fill out a particular form, and you're basically on record. And if there's any suspicion, then you have some information on you. So what people think they're doing that's smart, they will go into the bank and they'll do a transaction that's just a little bit under $10,000 to try to stay under the radar. Well, if you continuously do that, that within itself is going to be a red flag. It's suspicious activity because it seems as if you're actively trying to stay under the radar because you're continuing to do transactions that are under 10,000. So if you do a transaction that's over 10,000, that's an automatic thing, a file that someone's going to make. If you continually do a bunch of transactions that's just under 10,000, that too becomes suspicious. So that's what's going on. They keep doing these transactions that are just under $10,000. So now people are looking at that as that within itself is suspicious.
Yes, and because they were moving York's money, the cult is saying he didn't know about it. That was someone else. The people who dealt with the finance department, they were the ones doing it. They were supposed to be to get arrested, not him. So they're in this deep state of denial, cognitive dissonance. They're all messed up when it comes to the situation. So just like with R. Kelly's situation, right? Mm-hmm. They got him on that, the racketeering, as well as the Mann Act. And just like we're going through here about the Mann Act and how it was amended by Congress in 1978, then again in 1986, where it could be applied to transport and travel related to prostitution or any illegal sexual acts. The Mann Act was used to prosecute men for having sex with underage females. See, now this is the game that they play. They'll say, because they're trying to convince the public and keep York's image and say that no, he's not in prison for molesting any kids. He was convicted on the suspicion that he was going to do that. See, he didn't do it. It says that he was convicted on having the intent. He didn't say he did it, but he intended to do it. That's the kind of garbage that they're
that's the word games that these people are playing to try to make it seem as if he didn't do what he was convicted of doing.
Right. And so on this article here, just got all this at the statute, because like the Mann Act and 1591, this statute makes it a federal offense to knowingly recruit, entice, harbor, transport, provide, obtain, or maintain a minor defined as someone under the age of 18 years of age, knowing or in the reckless disregard of the fact that the victim is a minor and would be caused to engage in a commercial sex act. Commercial sex act is defined very broadly to include any sex act on account of which anything of value is given or to receive by any person. In other words, it is illegal both to offer and to obtain a child and cause that child to engage in any kind of sexual activity in exchange for anything of value, whether it be money, goods, personal benefits, in-kind favors, or someone or some other kind of benefit. All of this was brought out, and this is what they got here for. Mm-hmm. Sex trafficking of children by force, fraud, or coercion, transportation generally, coercion, enticement, transportation of minors. So they got York based on the victim's testimony, one being Humphrey Washington, where she had indicated that on the trip, she was the one who had to write up the names of the individuals that are to be taken down to Georgia, and they were upstate because the sex with minors was taking place upstate, and it was a small group of girls known as the Bennets. And these girls were the listed victims who testified against York. And in this Mann Act, even if he didn't accompany them on the trip down, which he did, but even if you want to give them that argument, according to the Mann Act, you don't have to accompany them. Just you
send in form.
There you go.
Because you sent form for the reasons of having sex with them.
Yes.
You didn't have to personally escort them, even though he did. Even though he rode down with them, he didn't have to be with them in the car traveling from upstate New York to Georgia. He could have just sent his driver. He still would be found guilty.
Yes, and he did have drivers, because there were some who came with his wife, there were some who came with their parents, and then there were others who came down with him, and a few of them were the victims. And that's what this article goes into great detail, and was showing you everything. And even because if people say, well, why, if he was doing all this, why was he sent to the Colorado Supermax? Well, that was because initially he was sent to Leavenworth, Kansas.
Right.
And then here we have the Federal Bureau of Prison incident report, where he made threats to the guards there, and that infraction, among other infractions, made him, because of his high profile and because of before the trial of them harassing government officials in Georgia, threatening the judge, threatening the other people, and even the witnesses, that they put him in a maximum security facility, which was in Colorado Supermax. So that's why he's there, because of the infractions of threatening individuals who were staff members and their families.
All right. So lastly, before we get into the questions, I want to ask about what was the reaction of the rank and file members of the organization now that he is clearly, he was found guilty. He got the 135 years. He is in jail. There's no real prospects, not legitimately, that he would ever get out. What now happens in the community?
Well, the community continued on. New members started to come. The proselytizing continued, and they always pushed the narrative that he was set up by the government. He was drugged. He's not in prison for any type of sexual activity with children. Even though, because when you ask the question, okay, well, if he wasn't, if he's not in prison for that, then was the case involving any mention of sex acts with minors?
Right.
when the state case, when he pled guilty to all those counts of sexual that got negotiated down,
right?
Was that the state case involving? Well, you get the point. Right. So what had happened, and what is currently happening, is there every year it's saying that he's coming out. He's coming out, and they come up with a series of different gimmicks. So throughout the trial, York insisted that he is a sovereign citizen and that he is of the Yamasee Native Americans, and he wants to be tried by a jury of his peers, which is of his tribe, the Yamasee Native Americans.
That's not how that works anyway. That's not, even if he was, and we're pretty sure, and we know that he's not, but even if he was, a jury of your peers is not technically people who look just like you, who have the same ethnic background as you. That's not a jury of your peers in the U.S. court. A jury of your peers simply means a group of people who live within the zip code of where you committed the crime.
Exactly.
That's a jury of your peers. So it doesn't matter what your ethnic background is, none of that. They're just going to look, okay, where did the crime happen? Where's the court going to be where you're going to go to court? Okay, this is the zip code. We're going to find people who are registered for jury duty in this area. That's it. That's what that means. So even if he was this Indian, this Native American that he claims to be, it doesn't mean anything.
Exactly. And then now let's move to after that. So because that all failed, then they, of course, they tried to appeal it, and on various grounds, and of course that appeal was thrown out. And so they came up with the gimmick or the claim that he should be released on the grounds that he is a Liberian diplomat.
Now he's Liberian.
Now he's a Liberian diplomat, and that former President Charles Taylor appointed him the Consul General of the Liberian embassy. Even though we call the Liberian embassy, they don't know what are you talking about. The ECOWAS decision said that when they brought it to the ECOWAS trial, the hearing on this, they said that they threw it out because it was frivolous. There's no proof.
There's no documentation whatsoever.
None. But they're still running with it. They're saying that His Majesty is a Liberian diplomat. Hold it. In addition to being a Liberian diplomat, here it comes.
Okay.
Now they're saying that they want to, and they have brought up papers in court and saying that he should be repatriated to his home country of Ghana, West Africa.
I thought he was Liberian. He was just Liberian like a couple of seconds ago. Now
Sudanese.
Okay.
And now you see how you reacted. Do you see that there's something wrong with these people?
Yeah,
they're promoting this stuff. They're going on platforms. People who are misinformed or don't know much about the history other than saying that he's a black man. They're pushing that narrative that he's a Ghanaian citizen and he should be repatriated. So they actually now they have recordings of York, recent recordings with individuals, and he's talking about it. He's saying the same stuff they've been saying back in 2006 when they pushed this stuff. And then they say he's going to be out by December because they've been saying that every year.
Every year they always saying.
Yes.
So for the fans, like 18, 19.
The followers. Still keeping the followers. Yes. So yeah, that is where it stands now. He's supposed to be released soon. He's going to be either he's being repatriated to the country of Ghana, or because of his failing health and being in a wheelchair and being of an elderly man, a frail old man, they want to have him sent to a less maximum security facility. This is what they're doing currently.
Currently, that's what's going on.
So all these neo-Nawapians, these latter-day Nawapians, who don't know anything about the case, haven't been.
They joined after he was even arrested.
His biggest defender, his main defenders are people who never met him, don't know the history of the organization, just what they saw online, or believe in what the people who want to believe stuff that they're saying is. Yeah, that's where it is. That's what it stands.
If you were to guess, I got two points to this question. If you were to guess, at its height, how many members do you think were in the organization at its height, at its biggest?
Okay, there's two parts to that. If you say how many people were in the organization, then that would mean those people who live within the walls of one of his communities. Now,
I see what you're saying. Because there's difference between actual members and sympathizers. And your sympathizers are always going to have a greater reach than the core members.
And those are the people you see in the chats that are, they'll try to rush a chat and try to dominate the chat. They try to drown it out and then cry, oh, they're not letting all the comments go up because they got to constantly play the victim.
Gotcha.
See, that's York's main MO. Always play the victim. We are victimized by everybody. They don't want us. They are making these things up. None of this is real. You see?
Gotcha.
That's the gimmick. So that's the trick. Now, as far as members are concerned, like I said, depending on, there was never an official tally on how many members were in a group, because sometimes people left just like that.
They come in, they see that they're living in different quarters from their girlfriend or their wife, and they're like, all right.
Man, I seen people walk out. I remember people walking out right after prayer. They still support it, but they said they can't live like that.
Right.
I mean, you got a car, you can't even pay your car note because you got to turn all your money in. And a lot of people, I don't want to ride the bus.
Right.
Because you have to ride the bus or subway, and you carrying incense and oils and books, and you got this white outfit and with some oil stains, and then people see you and you trying everywhere you go, you're trying to make money, even when you walk into get back to the bank, you're trying to make as much money as you can, and then you turn it in, and it's still not the high man.
Right, it still ain't enough. You might not be the low man on the totem pole, but you ain't got enough money to get to that green room.
Yeah, and if a brother turned in $200, and he and his girl going around the corner, which is usually just in DC, it was a mattress, some incense, because it was on Florida Avenue. Right next to the Howard Theater. Matter of fact, before the Howard Theater got renovated, it was a crack area.
Oh.
Yes, it was a high crack area on Georgia and Florida Avenue where they meet. They had a little room there. So you go in, because one time me and my girl went in there and it smelled like urine. So we went in there, then we had some incense, that it was a Bhakti incense that York had released. And then we burned that to try to kill that pee smell. And then there was a mattress. And she was all, I'm not getting on that. I'm telling you, Shorty was not having it. She was not having it. But whatever happened. But the point was, you had the mattress, incense, and some adult magazines. That's your green room there. Now, of course, Baltimore's green room was a little more elaborate. It was like an Arabian type of thing. You had a big bed, you had a queen size bed with the veil thing over the bed, that kind of thing. It was, just try to make it more accommodating for families. Because in Baltimore, we had it where you could have make time and you could walk down to the reservoir.
Mm-hmm.
DC, you couldn't do that. I mean, because on Florida Avenue, I mean, you had people selling drugs right down the street, and you were always you're not gonna bring your girl around that stuff. So make time was very scarce unless you go into masjid. Mm-hmm. That was about the only place. You go into masjid, you sit off. She's calling me. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
What I want to do is we got maybe another 10-15 minutes. I want to just open it up to a few questions. Are you available for a few questions?
Yeah.
Okay. Please.
But real short, because I got to pick somebody else.
All right, listen, people. Please, let's keep it as short as possible and straight to the point. We got Triple C Treehouse coming in. What's going on, Triple C?
Hey, JT. I just wanted to add something in real quick.
Please do.
Chuck got it. But we are trying to get Chuck over 1,000. We are trying to get Chuck's website up in the algorithm, because right now, NuWapianFacts.com, which has a whole lot of disinformation, is the first one that comes up, and not NuWapianism.com, which is Chuck's website.
All right, what can we do to help? I mean, obviously, I want people to go to his YouTube channel and make sure that you subscribe to his YouTube channel. What can we do? I mean, do we go to Google and just type in his website a bunch of times? But for the
website, we don't see how we can push him back up the search. I got to ask a friend of mine about that part. But as for YouTube, the content creators amongst us that have community tabs, they need to be liking, they need to be sharing out to their subs, and they need to be doing that on a regular basis. This is, look, it's hard because the Nuwapians are reactivated right now because of the polite situation. Also, while I'm up here, me and Chuck and somebody else are going to have an interview tomorrow night at 9:30 Eastern time. If you are so able, I would love for you to be on the panel for a financial view. You ain't got to stay for the whole thing, but
send me the info. I want to give Chuck an opportunity to get on up out of here, because it looks like he's got something to do. Hopefully, we can do like a part 2 to this somewhere.
Chuck is a well of information.
I think she is over 6, so it's okay.
Yeah, me and Chuck been interviewing each other. We've been Q&A'ing Chuck for years and years and years. So we have that, but right now the pushes, they are active. They are reactivated. They have some type of new energy. The push needs to be to get people like Chuck, people like Tar Noonan, people like Jacob York, so they don't have to go into anybody else's platform, and they can get out and get the information to the people themselves. We got a 1K push for anybody that's interested. Go read the description box in any of my videos. But that's all I had to add. I'm gonna let Chuck go away for a couple of questions, and also tomorrow 9:30, you're gonna want to be there. For any of the content creators, go read the description box, and you know what to do from there. I'm gonna let it go because everybody else wants questions, so I'm gonna let Chuck give a man.
All right, perfect. Make sure you send me the info. If I'm available, I will definitely be there. So I'm just gonna give you a couple of seconds here because I'm not gonna keep going through this chat. So if y'all got questions and it has not been answered, type it back in the chat because y'all are going way too fast for me to go back through. So make sure you type in the chat again what your question is because I'm not going back through this chat. It's way too many you're typing way too fast for me to search through this chat here. But all right, so they're saying every year that he's supposed to be he's getting out.
Right.
Obviously, every year goes by and he is not out. I mean, what does that do to the morale of the organization when every year he's still in jail? I mean, nothing's changing.
Well, let's put it this way. As long as you have, and you're controlling this narrative that you're the victim, he's constantly being blocked because agents are all around and they're trying to prevent him from being free. That constant hope that it's coming. Right. It's the same thing that he's been doing. There's more to come. Stay tuned. The plot thickens. It's not over. It's not over till it's over. So some people have faded off.
Mm-hmm.
Some people just completely left it alone as they started to see and realize that what was being said is now real. All of the people who spoke in defense of York, who testified as on the defense side, have since, as they've grown older and made sure, and once he was incarcerated, they've said that they lied on the stand, saying that yes, he did molest them. So if he had a trial today, all the people who he had as a defense are all on the prosecution side.
Really?
Yeah. And they did try to tamper with all of the witnesses. They threatened them. They threatened to put out pictures and lie on them. Even Tariq Noel had Manny Aurora, detective. They tried to bribe him into saying that nothing happened by giving him baseball cards. This is documented. As a matter of fact, Agent Patrick is questioning him in the cross-examination when he said that on the second trip that you, your father, and I forget the other names of the people, you said that you were not molested. But he is ignoring the first time because the first time that they met with him, he said that it did happen. Of course it happened. And of course, as time progressed throughout, all the evidence corroborated the statements of the individuals. And that was what put him away because the jury were privy to what was taking place, as well as the 150 people who were able to watch the trial live as it happened down on the third floor, because the judge said he didn't want to have a closed court. So he's going to set up a room for closed circuit television for anyone to come, spectators, family can watch the trial in real time. So they saw the evidence as well.
Right. Let's talk. So it's probably one of the last questions. I want to make sure you get to go where you need to go. During the whole lifetime of this organization, even though through all the different schools it went through, at every stage, York was smart enough, if I can use that term, or at least conniving enough to know to link himself to certain popular personalities, celebrities, and whatnot. That he knew to do that.
Yes.
What was it like as far as when he was convicted and everything? Was there a great movement for these people who at one point aligned themselves with York and allowed them to really lend some of their celebrity when they would show up with him and he would use it as PR stunts and whatnot, even foreign dignitaries, right? Was there a movement?
Jackson, Al Sharpton, and all.
Yeah. Was there a movement for them to, distance themselves from him, or was they just like, they just kind of let it go and just hopefully no one would bring it up?
They dropped him like a hot potato.
Okay.
Everybody abandoned ship. They want to have their name associated with it. Everybody flew. All of them. They all left. Nobody. James Ingram, I even saw him on the Word channel. He was talking about different things, but he made he didn't wear nothing. He just
And that's because the Word is a Christian network, right? You're talking about the Christian television network.
Hey, listen, when York was talking all that stuff about Egypt, towards the end, a year before his incarceration, matter of fact, up until a month before he was incarcerated, he started promoting this whole Christian theology. Instead of having the own chant coming out of the Black Pyramid, it then started chanting Jesus songs and Jesus chants. And that he started giving lectures saying that he accepted the Lord Jesus Christ as his personal savior. And what's wrong with you doing it? He said, I know what I was talking about in Egyptology. I knew what I was talking about, Enki, Enlil, and all this other stuff. But when God touches your heart and you let Jesus in, then you just got to go with it. So he put out an audio CD called You Want to Question Me, and I Taught You, where he's strongly advocating being a Christian and challenging you to prove why you cannot be a Christian.
Now, is this the walls are already closing in on him at this point, right?
Yeah.
So he kind of already saw saw what was coming down the pipe, and maybe aligning himself with Christianity, and maybe
he could run, but he couldn't hide. Even if he tried to hide, because he started making himself absolutely contradictory, inconsistent. Because first of all, I thought we was all in school back then. What did we miss a lesson? Because all of a sudden now everything is centered around being in Jesus, and he's real. All the years of saying that Jesus isn't real, he didn't exist. Jesus of 2,000 years ago is not real, did not exist. Now he said that Jesus of 2,000 years ago is real. He's real. I know he's real. Even put a billboard saying he's real.
in Georgia.
In Georgia, the Holy Seed Baptist Synagogue.
But now the modern day or latter day Nubians, did they identify with that, or did they turn a whole new page?
They don't even talk about it. I have to keep reminding them when I put it out there, because it's like there's nothing consistent with your theology.
Yeah.
The guy said he was from another planet. Then he was born in Sudan. Then he's an Indian chief. And then he is a Liberian diplomat. And then he's a Hebrew, a Jewish rabbi. And then towards the end, he becomes a citizen of the country of Ghana. And he demands to be repatriated back to the country of Ghana where he's born.
And at every stage, there's money that's being collected. Every stage, even after arrested, at every stage there was another opportunity to cash in. Even up to today, they're still doing fundraising and stuff.
Still doing it. So the cult hasn't died, and now that they're a little more active. They're active on one hand, but because the Polite situation has brought so much attention, people are trying to figure out, well, who is Polite's mentor? And now that they're seeing all this other stuff, they got to go out there and try to defend it, because now there's a whole new line of people saying, "Whoa, what's going on?" And that's, people asking me, so hey, I'm here, I'm sharing what I know.
Gotcha.
Because the documentation is well established, so there's no way you can't see it.
You can't miss it, right? If you're looking and trying to find this information, and you're trying to look into this organization, there's no way that you're going to miss all the documented proof of the scandals, the sexual abuse, the money, all of these different things, the hypocrisy, the contradictions in the doctrine.
Even the people that tried to, because York tried to make his son the scapegoat, and even because we did a show with him a couple of days ago, and that the cult just lost their mind, because now he's the man who is persona non grata in the Nubian cult is now defending himself and giving more information, along with the girl who the Nubians used as part of her video, saying that it was all a setup. Jacob went her down to South Beach and Kedar, Massenberg's house, and then they set up this conspiracy to take down Pops. That girl, who is Leah York, she explained why they did it and why the organization told them to do it. not that it was true, but they said that this is what you need to do to help your father.
And how old was she when she made that tape trying to help
I don't know
her
how
father?
old she was. I don't know how old she was, but she was she looks like she's in her mid-teens.
Okay.
But now that she's full, she went on record and she said, I want to make it clear, and she's trying to get that videotape taken off the internet. As well as everybody that said it are now saying it's true what he did, and they were only following. The same thing go for Habiba. She did a video on behalf of the organization. They leaked it on the YouTube, and then they tried to get York a new trial. And come to find out, when the trial came, she said, "I stand by everything I said at the trial, irregardless of the fact that York had a child with her. The DNA proved it, that she was a minor when she was another girl." So they're using that and say, "Oh, there's some new information where there's a recappment." When that recappment got debunked the same year, August of 2004, when she went in the hearing, and then she said, "I stand by everything that I said." And then she came in, even got me to put it out that she said that you people are nuts. He was a child molester. He did all this stuff, and I hope he dies in prison.
I mean, the proof is that it's documented that she had a child with this man when she was a child.
Yes, but
how much more proof do you need?
But they're saying that, well, because he's Sudanese and in that culture, you can do that. And because of her going on her first period, that makes her an adult.
That one, all of that sounds like BS. But it doesn't matter what culture you come from. You're bound by the laws of the land that you live in.
Man. It's sad, but this is what those people who are lost in that mindset, they just have no clue. And they just don't care. They don't care anything about the people who suffered and are traumatized. And just imagine that the person who raped you, who sodomized you, gave you a venereal disease, gave you anal chlamydia, anal scarring, and you're having nightmares. You can't, in one case, maybe one can't have a child. And you got a group of people defending that creep.
Right.
How do you think they feel? They don't want to come out because they've been attacked. They get attacked as soon as they come out and want to speak about it, they get attacked. And that's what these cult members do. All cult members do that. But brother, it's been absolutely a delight. I hate to go. I really do.
No. I understand. I appreciate it. Hopefully in the future we can do a part 2. I know we're going to have some follow-up questions on this. I appreciate it. Thank you for coming on. Okay, all of his information, if you're watching the replay, you can find it. Make sure you subscribe to his YouTube channel. Let's make sure that he gets to that 1,000, and make sure that you go to his website, Google his website. We're going to find a way to make sure that when you look up information on York, if you look up information about the Nuwaubians, his website is going to be the top thing.
I appreciate that. So and we're going to talk off air, because what we talked about before the show, I really want to follow up on that.
Oh, absolutely. So we're going to be in touch.
But I gotta run.
All right, you go ahead and go. Thank you so much.
I appreciate you, and I appreciate everyone just for being here. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So, all right, Pocket Watchers, I know we're going on 3.5 hours, but honestly, I mean, the information that I saw on this brother online, I wanted to bring it to your attention. Some may be saying, what does this have to do with pocket watching? Listen, people, cults do not work without money. All right. There's no way that Dwight York, aka what all those other names he gave himself, there's no way that he would have been able to perpetrate what he did to many people, as far as, just financial crimes, as far as the mental and physical abuse of members who had to conform to the different type of lifestyles being in this cult. And, on top of all of that, obviously, the child molestation and sexual abuse that he did to young girls and boys, none of that would have been able to happen if it was not for the money that was involved in this cult. So these are the red flags that you have to see, and as a community we have to point at it and make sure that we do everything that we can to keep things like this from happening. So I'm just going to say thank you. Make sure you hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and thank you again for pocket watching with me. I will see you guys next time.